Assalamu alaikum, folks. Ahlan wa sahlan. Let me just welcome back with another episode of MindTrap. I'm just going to check that we are live and the sound is coming through. I can see that it seems to be blasting its way through. Let me just adjust that so I'm not deafening anyone. Right. Let me just bring up your comments and make sure that you guys can hear me. Is the volume coming through okay? I take it is. Bismillah, inna alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada wa man bihudahum ihtada wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa wa ba'd. Right. Fasalamullahi ala al-qawm. People, I have for you tonight an esteemed guest that you saw, Shaykh AbdulRahman Ghauri, all the way from Germany, a young, esteemed scholar who we're going to get into some incredible conversation with. So let me just bring on to Assalamu alaikum.
الله وبركاته استاذ.
All right. Yeah. Sheikh AbdulRahman Al Ghauri. All right. Finally, I apologize for the delay for anybody that was waiting. As always, there's technical issues. These technical issues follow us around.
No, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here, Muft. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're most welcome. As the viewers can see, look, a young, dashing scholar all the way from Germany. Allah. We have to add the dashing looks, no matter what time of day it is, day or night. Look at the यार क्या बात है यार style की क्या बात
They're used to this because of you know.
कहाँ यार. So all right.
You laid the foundation so people, scholars like us, get respect with these hair. No.
Allah.
Yeah.
So right, Sheikh. Right. I just heard
Is the sound okay? Like,
the sound's fine. Let me just check that. Right, that people can hear. If there's any issues with the sound from Sheikh AbdulRahman, do let us know. Otherwise, it seems fine. And shukran, those of you tuning in, clicking like, clicking share, and sending your love, much appreciated. People, right. So Sheikh AbdulRahman, if we can, I'd love to get a brief kind of navigation of your journey. So you're from Frankfurt, Germany. That's where you're raised, and then you go off to study in a madrasa. If you could just briefly navigate us through that journey of yours into the Islamic sciences.
Yeah, sure. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thanks, Mufti. Barakallah fiqh, jazakumullah khair, for inviting me and everyone who listens, of course. It's an honor. So, yeah, of course, it's important to know where someone comes from and what the journey has been, especially academically. So, of course, that's important. I grew up in Frankfurt. I've been raised in Frankfurt. My parents are immigrants which came to Frankfurt. And like my dad has been here for like 50 years. So it's been from the very very early workers and stuff. So yeah, so I grew up here, and when I was about, I think, 8 years old, I started doing hifz. That means memorizing the Quran. And I used to go to the local mosques, and start, doing memorizing the Quran and stuff. It took me about 2.5 years. So I was 11 when I finished memorizing the Quran.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So after that, of course, I didn't know Arabic or stuff or anything of that sort at that time. So I didn't know what I understood. But it is like that of most of the kids don't know what they actually read, in that age. So it was normal. So I memorized the Quran, alhamdulillah. And then at the age of 14, I left to the Darul Ulum, 14, 15. So then basically I shifted myself to London. My dad sent me there. and it was like a private school, a private institution where I did schooling, and some of you might be familiar with the Madrasa system in England. So I started there, and I studied there for like about 5 years, 5 years. And for my last and for the last year, I actually, after that, I finished and went to Mecca, and I did, I tried to get into the uni, alhamdulillah, al Qura. I got in there, and then, my teachers advised me over there, you should, because you have a foundation, you should basically go to the private scholars and, do the private courses, of which we offer. Some of the scholars which are in the uni also offer private courses, for people who are advanced in their studies. So I did that. So yeah, alhamdulillah. So I after that, there was no stopping. There were a lot of scholars from South Africa and different other countries which I had a good connection with, and I started studying with them. So yeah, that's how the journey has been.
Wow.
And
And
which has
if you don't
gone on.
mind me asking, Sheikh, how old are you now?
Now I'm 29.
29.
Yeah.
बस
30
यार
years. Yeah,
यार
inshallah.
काहे को शर्मिंदा कर रहे हैं? Embarrassing us. We
What-
feel
you're-
senile now. जैसे I feel
Yeah.
like I should just apply for my pension and get it over and done with. Yeah.
No, it's the thing is, I started giving talks because you have to understand one thing. In Germany, the Islamic, the whole Islamic system, the Islamic infrastructure,
Yeah.
the whole Islamic environment has not been as maybe successful, you would call it, as England and the United States of America. It's been very different. So like in Germany, they're quite they're very lenient, and they're not as advanced in having Islamic centers, Islamic kindergartens, or these kind of things. They don't have that. So what we had is we had the need of having someone giving talks in Germany. And that's why I came into confrontation of giving talks when I was 15 years old already. So I had to give talks when I wasn't even a scholar.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so the pressure was immense. Like
I can imagine.
because a lot of people do give talks, but they're not scholars.
Yeah.
So there is no even right now, if you like, a lot of people in Germany still don't know what a real Islamic scholar would be. So for them, everyone who's done a year maybe in Mecca, they'll be like, okay, he's a sheikh. And you're like, what? Because the word sheikh or the word Islamic scholar hasn't got any kind of patent, or nothing which actually secures its meaning. So everyone can be a scholar, an Islamic scholar in that sense. So that makes a big problem. And of course, then I started giving talks very early in mosques and everything. Then I was a khatib for the Friday prayer in German, so people can, So that's how the journey started. And I've been, blessed, up and downs always. So yeah.
I was going right, and for your areas of interest as you were studying the Islamic sciences. So your Islamic studies, sorry, it spans over a decade. It goes from, I mean, excluding the hifth, the Dars Nizami, and then following your kind of travels as you went abroad. Okay, wow. So
I would say 12 years now.
12 years. And the areas that you found yourself gravitating towards were Hadith studies and
Hadith study or Fatawa, that was something which I really, really, because again, if you are put in a position like fatwa was one thing which I didn't have a choice to. Like, for example, when I was 15, people used to come to me because they knew he was 1 year in madrasa. They used to come and they're like, oh, Sheikh, how do you do this and that? And I was like, I'm a kid and I didn't know, but I was expected to know. And that's the reason, alhamdulillah, I'm very well trained in all four
Madhahib.
yeah, madhahib.
क्या बात
Because
है यार.
Yeah, because people, you have to imagine a Moroccan guy comes and he wants to know the Maliki Mas'ala. Now, I don't know the Maliki Mas'ala. I was like, I don't know even the Hanafi Mas'ala at that time. So I had to know what the Malikis say. I had to know what the things say. And always, I remember in Madrasa, there was a lot of like, if there were like fiqh classes, Islamic jurisprudence classes for everyone. I remember, of course, because it was a Hanafi leaned on Madrasa, they used to talk about the Hanafi fiqh. And I used to say, yeah, but what does Imam Shafi'i say? And he's like, he says this and that. And I'm like, but what does Imam Malik say? And he's like, what's your problem? You know, and I was like, yeah, because you don't understand. When I go back, they ask me. They do ask me, and I have to know, because in England it's Hanafi dominant, some
Yeah,
mosques.
it is. Yeah.
But over here it's not. So I'm like, I need to know. And they used to be like, oh, you're just asking too much. You just want to ask too much, and you have a bad habit of asking the teacher, is disrespecting the teacher. But I used to ask. In that time, I used to ask a lot of stuff about different madahib.
Yeah.
But because people expected me to know. So the fatwa interest came because I had to know. So after a point of time when I, finished, and for me, I didn't really finish until now. So the research keeps going. But fatwa was one thing I had to learn, how to give a fatwa, how to write a fatwa. So even if no one would come to me, I would have learned it anyway, because people come all the time and ask mas'ala,
Sure. Right. A bit of a random one. That English. I'm really. Is this just something because everybody speaks generally English this well in Germany, or is
That's a
this
good question,
something you picked up?
If you have realized, I have a British accent, but that is because when I came to England, I didn't know English. I didn't know English at all. So when I came to England, I actually absorbed the English. Like they used to call me Freshie in that room. They used to be like, "You German Hitler, Freshie." I used to be, because we were kids, of course. Kids are kids. Doesn't matter if it's Islamic school or Western school or like normal school or state school or boarding school. Kids are kids. So of course I was the new guy, and I was from Germany, and I didn't know English. So they were like, "Oh, you don't know English, you're fresh back," and this and that. So of course, my English actually
developed whilst in the UK.
Developed in the UK. But then again, I have to say, I had a really bad slang being in UK, because you speak slang, But then when I went for further studies to different countries, to Italy and to Hungary, went to Budapest as well, to university. To do a normal degree and stuff. So when I went there, my English became kind of international, but I still have a British accent on me. So you picked it up.
No, I just thought, wow, all this conversation is in English, and your English is very good. And I thought, well, okay, maybe is this because everybody in Germany speaks English as well?
They don't.
They don't. Okay, wow.
Because what in a culture, if you I analyzed it a few times, a society speaks English. If it's a non-English speaking society, then the only reason a society could speak English is because that society has entertainment in English. Like, for example, Holland and the Netherlands are really, really good example. Like, my sisters live over there, and they speak extremely good English because when they grew up, all of the series of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and King of Queens, they were all in English with Dutch subtitles. Since small, so they pick up English really, really fast.
English, to be fair, I mean, it's because of the kind of status that it holds, and it's the international language of the internet, and the language of, so people in many countries do speak it in Europe, unlike in England, where they only speak. It's interesting that you couldn't get by in England with French. But you could get by in France with English, and that's these are interesting.
Although the French hate
the or in other you could pick out another example.
Countries like France, or maybe also Germany.
I would have thought, to be fair, Germany.
they speak less English compared to Netherlands because the entertainment in Germany is completely in German. Every film is completely dubbed in German. That's why they're so good in like that's why the synchronization business and dubbing business in Germany is one of the best in the world. In dubbing, they're really
Okay,
good.
wow.
Yeah, like for example, I'll just give you a small example. Like if a German normal guy in my age would hear, just if you give him headphones and he would hear the dubbed voice of Leonardo DiCaprio, he would recognize it like this.
Okay.
Because he's been hearing that dubbed voice his whole life, but he doesn't know his original voice. So they're very like dubbed centric, and that's why the English suffers a bit, but they do still speak English.
It's epic nevertheless. So coming to this, right, so you've I want to come back to in a moment your studies, your kind of let's just say your exploration and the journey and the experience while studying, but we'll come to that in a moment. After studying, you've gone back, you've graduated, you've pursued further studies, you've traveled to Saudi Arabia, you've kind of done a bit, you've learned, you enrolled in Qura in Mecca.
Yeah.
You were there for a little while, you did some private studies, and you've come back to Frankfurt, Germany. Are you, out of curiosity, are you pursuing any secular studies there, or no, or what's, just to get an idea?
Yeah, I did a business degree,
Okay.
but I didn't finish it, to be fair, because after 6 semesters, I basically after like 2 years, I left that. I started again online, but then I left that as well because I was making, I was living good for myself with some businesses that I had, which then, had.
What's a business degree if you can just do business?
Yeah, but I do regret it, to be honest. I do regret not to have finished it off, and I might, who knows, I might be, because these days you just have to enroll yourself online and then just give an exam, and I might still do that.
Sure. I mean, you're very young yet. I mean, you haven't even reached 30, so you've got so much of the path ahead of you yet. There's many things to do. So, okay, so talk to us, since this whole because you've spent an incredible portion of your life in this Islamic platform of learning, engaging with Islam behind the scenes, in the sense of learning it and developing, and this whole journey, arguably since your hifth, so almost 2 decades now. Right. You've come back, you don't appear as, not in a judgmental way, but I'm just saying, as people would notice, that look, somebody said in the comments, oh, he doesn't appear like somebody from Dars Nizami. You've got the hairstyle, style, style. You've got the, the slick haircut, the stylish kind of beard going on, the cool dress sense, as we can see that super slick shirt right there. So, right now, how has this, two things, I mean, I'll come back to the second part of other people, but for now, how has this been for you? Because has it kind of been very difficult as a scholar coming back, not fitting a kind of a profile, an anticipated profile, or is it pretty easy in Germany? Because I know over here in the UK you'd get a bit of a hard time.
I did, like, if I, I remember you shared that picture. How did I change from that look to that look? Remember when you shared that picture?
Yes,
And
yes.
same with me. I could do a video same as you with a picture, and people won't recognize me. And when I came back, I used to look extremely different. My hairstyle was different. I was different. Me as a person, I was different. The way I used to dress was different. I always had a niche for like being stylish, but at that time I was just, I think, too overwhelmed, because of course in a madrasa you do get isolated. You're completely alone. You're completely in a zone where you you don't have that much contact to people outside. You don't get a lot of, you know, especially you don't have phones, but you know, you can sneak in phones and stuff, of course, but you are very isolated, of course, from the community. So when I came back, I was looking extremely different. And to be fair, I have to say that I think people would know that, but again, to rectify, of course, my state of mind has changed immensely in those in the even when I graduated or when I finished from the Dars Nizami part, and then when I went to you know, and after the 5 years I did there, and then I went to further my studies to, you know, to Mecca, and then from there I did the online studies and went to a few other scholars and stuff. So everything I did, I went I really stepped up my game, or maybe people would say I stepped down. But in my understanding, I, you know,
Gumrah. You
yeah, people
thumb.
would he was going further to the darkness. I would say I would min al-dhulumat ila an-nur. You
They'd
know,
say ثم they'd say ثم ضل ضلالا بعيدا.
but I didn't go to Daraba Allah. I didn't go there. So, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
That's an insider, inshallah. But whatever.
Right. So, okay. Yeah.
So what I was saying is I did evolve in my understanding, alhamdulillah, to something very different. Like, for example, I give you an example. I used to actually believe in the Madrasa time. I didn't believe it from my heart, but I
Believed what? Sorry.
I used to actually think or believe that when they used to tell us, okay, if you don't have one fist of a beard, you are actually a fasiq. So basically, you're an open sinner which sins 24/7. And I used to actually think that is something which is true. Although the back of my mind always used to tell me, how someone be a sinner 24/7 if there are so many scholars and other people like in Turkey or in Egypt who don't have beards, you know, and then they used to come with some ridiculous.
But were you aware of the ikhtilaf on the full beard?
But in the beginning, in the studies, I remember they never used to tell us, you know. Of course they didn't, you know. But then again, I remember when I asked a teacher, with all due respect, I asked him, what does the different madhab say? And he said, he actually said, मैं इमाम मालिक का कौल नहीं बताऊंगा. He said that, and I was like, why would you do that? Why would you not say it? And because he was afraid that people will.
Did he say it's because it's a secret?
No, because he actually said that. So I was quite thinking, but of course some teachers would say that, alhamdulillah. It's not like that, but you know, it was very, of course, because it was compulsory to keep a beard in that school. So if you cut your beard, you're going to be expelled. So it was very hard.
Cha, would they, if you trimmed your beard and because you were in the madrasa here in the UK in London, was it?
Yeah.
Strict? Was it a strict Darul Uloom or a bit okay?
No. It was strict if you compare it. If you compare it to some others, I've heard, I don't want to take any name, but sure, I've heard there's some other Darul Ulooms in England were even more strict than ours. Sure, but
it was strict enough. So if you trimmed your beard, like let's say how you've got it now, you'd be expelled.
You would be expelled. Yeah.
Yeah,
you should know that.
No, I thought maybe as a foreigner they might give you a bit of leniency. They might be like,
no, it's not like Pakistan or something. It's they were quite strict with that. You know, it's like in these kind of things they were strict.
It's
interesting. People used to try to still do it somehow, so no one and they say dari nahi nikalti hai, you know, it doesn't come. So I'm sorry, I have some hair growing problems, but
that's my one. You know, I said to so in Pakistan they were a bit lenient with the foreigners section in Karachi, and you know they'd let us, like it was one of those laissez-faire, you know, this kind of thing, like okay, they won't ask us any questions, but what they would do is when the exam time would come, if they would inspect all the beards, and if your beards are trimmed, they wouldn't let you sit the exams, so then you can't move to the next year, and so you kind of flop and fail. So I remember at that time, even though I did have a beard, but not many, but some of the foreigners would just they would trim and just neaten up the beard and keep it to a certain length. Actually, to be fair, it was probably about this kind of length, just probably a bit more around the sides. Now I've got it around the sides as well. But so we just neaten it up, and they could tell now that's definitely been trimmed, you know. So, so I said, oh, I did a laser operation on my beard. And then I had to come up with all this science to explain it. I said, you know, you have these hair follicles, and because I'd gone on because what it was,
No,
I
it's
went to the UK on a summer break or something. I came back and I said, oh, you know, when I went, I did this surgery. So they were like, "Acha, aisa hota hai?" And I was like, "Yeah, like what they do is they map it out." And I was explaining how the follicles work. And I go, "What they do is, I go, there's a portion of the follicle that keeps the hair alive. There's another
yeah.
portion that makes it grow. And I go, they kill with the laser the part that makes it grow." So they were like, acha. They go,
मुफ्ती साहब इसको भी जिद्दोजहद कहते हैं. You did your best, you
I
know.
did. And they said, and you know what they said? They said, we want, so one of the teachers accepted it, and the other said, no, I want proof that this can happen.
What?
So what it was, check this out. What it was, a friend of mine from London. So something, I don't know, like he had some issues, so he had to go to the hospital. So in Karachi, he had this big hospital called Liaqat Hospital or something. And so we're in there, and he had to go for something. So when he's there, he wanted to speak to he wanted to ask about, like, in that day and age, the hair transplant thing was quite new, and he was losing a bit of hair, and he was just curious. He just wanted to, since he's in hospital, he just thought, you know, I'll just ask a consultant, and it's quite easy in Pakistan. So he went there, and he kind of like got this appointment, and I went with him. So this guy, the doctor, the consultant, happened to have lived in England for a little while in Birmingham. And he's Pakistani, but he stayed here for a little while. So he's like, "Oh, you guys are from the UK. I lived in Birmingham." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm from Birmingham." And so anyway, we connect, and he tells whatever details. And I said, "Oh, Dr. Saab," I said, "could you do me a little favor?" I said, if I could take your number and provide it to one of our madrasa, and this is the theory I've ran past them on the freezing the hair follicles. So I go, if they call you, could you just say that, yeah, in the UK they have stuff like that. So he did, and they actually called him. I couldn't believe it. They called him. It was mad.
You know what the funny thing is, I get you, but you know, people must be thinking, what the hell? Like, where did they study? What was that? You know, I don't know if I've told you, I've told that story. Like, I actually, about the beard part, I was invited to a wedding of very, mashallah, good Mufti Saab,
Okay.
and you know, from London,
another Mufti Saab. Okay.
not Birmingham.
I thought I was going to say, which one of my weddings did I invite you to? Hector, Yadash, I keep forgetting. I need to improve my memory.
So I went to London all the way from Germany, and at that time I didn't have this kind of beard. My beard was quite short. It was like because it was after Madrasa, so it was like, how do I put it? It was like
very. I get it. I'm kind of getting it.
Yeah, it was like it's not like, it wasn't like a 3-day beard or something. It was more, but it wasn't like this.
Yeah,
so you could tell that I don't have that much, you know. So what I actually did, now check my state of mind out at that time. This must be like 8 years ago or something. So what happened then, I was so terrified that everyone's gonna say, look at his face, he doesn't have that one fist beard anymore. So what I did, Muft Saab, I'm only saying this because your story was also ridiculous, so I'm allowed to say this.
Chalo, at least you said it on my face.
अब क्या पता रखने की जरूरत, हम भी बोलेंगे अब. So I actually went to a shop in England, in London, and to a makeup shop. Like, they were like experts in, you know, for like masks and stuff. And I bought a beard,
a fake beard,
like for £150 or something.
Wow. Okay.
So they sticked it on. But not like this one. Like, it was just here like a goatee, you know. And over here I had hair. So what they did, they put this on. So I went to this wedding and I felt so embarrassed. But I was like, this is better.
Did it look legit though? Did it look legit?
I don't think at all. but for me, it was the best option to go. Now, imagine my
Was
state.
it? Did they just stick on like a blonde beard, and
I
it's
don't
like
know.
everything else is?
Trust me, I don't even want to know how like dumb it is. But it was like now I look back and I'm like, how stupid was I that I actually did this for
I don't. Yeah.
people to think that I have a one-fist beard? What? Why would I do that? Because people would think, well, he's gone gumrah, he's gone on the dark side of the power.
But weren't you still a student at the madrasa at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
I was,
you'd left madrasa.
yeah,
Oh, right. I thought you meant you were still there in the
that
final
was
year.
like 2 years after I left. So I was like,
okay.
people would think that. So I would never do that anymore, of course. But I was like, look, that's what I'm trying to say.
You were young, and you're still young, but you were young. Yeah.
No, but coming to your original question, I have evolved a lot in the times that I have, gained, alhamdulillah, the last 10 years. And coming back to the original question also, of course, in Germany, people do judge you as well. Like they do say, why is his hair like that? Like, for example, there was this one mosque I went to, and they said things like,
believe in Islam.
How can he?
They start giving you da'wah to Islam.
No, they actually said, why are his eyebrows so perfect? Or like
eyebrows.
Yeah, why?
See now that you say it, Sheikh, kya baat hai yaar? Kya eyebrows hai?
No, but they do say that. They do.
See, now that you draw our attention to it, it's like
I shouldn't have.
you.
But
tease kar rahe. You start teasing us.
Mufti Sahab, stop shifting from yourself to me. No, but people do say that kind of stuff a lot. They do. Because they say it's okay for us, but why are you doing it? They say that. They're like, you're meant to be a role model. You're not allowed to be like that. It's like, I don't want to compare myself, astaghfirullah, but of course it's like, مالي هذا الرسول يأكل الطعام ويمشي في الأسواق.
Acha, see that? You start, you go, I don't want to compare myself, but then you give an example of the prophets.
No, but you know what I mean. This guy.
What day and age have we reached? No, I'm joking. No, you're giving a good, noble example.
Yeah, you know what I mean. No, but that's how people are. They do that. They, of course, they judge you upon your appearance, of course.
So, right, okay. Do you so? In fact, the madrasa thing.
Yeah.
Since we're speaking about it, what are some highlights that really stand out for you? Because you spent, a bunch of years in a madrasa, living there, lodging, the whole thing. What kind of stands out for you? This journey, that part of the journey.
There is pros and contras everywhere. I have to. First of all, I would like to say that pros and contras with every institution and everything. I am very, very, very thankful to my asatiza, to my teachers, because at the end of the day, of course, after that, I pursued my own studies, and alhamdulillah, the state of mind I have now, I have alhamdulillah got to it. But at the end of the day, these people laid the foundation of knowledge, the tools of knowledge to me, be it nahwa sarf, be it
of course
Arabic grammar, be it usul al-fiqh and other things. And some of the things the teachers said, I'm highly, and they were highly educated teachers. Like we have a lot of teachers which we had, they were extremely educated, and they were alhamdulillah very well read. Now, of course, they are, now I got to understand, they are an institution. They can't go out of it, of course. So they are bound on some extent, of course. But alhamdulillah, I've been blessed in that sense. But of course, there are contras as well. Like this is probably the best example. Like a lot of times, people come to me after talks or Q&A session, and they say, where did you study again? You studied in London. Can you tell us the name of the madrasa? I want to send my kid there as well. Now, because I know the contras and I don't speak about them in public because I don't want to disgrace ever an Islamic institution in a bad way. But I also want them to know what they're getting into because it's a kid, for God's sake. It's very tricky for me. That's probably the hardest thing to answer, because on one hand, I respect the institution and the love and the good intentions behind it and the knowledge behind it. But on the other hand, there are a lot of contrasts which you and I know, which we won't do publicly to disgrace an institution, of course, but you have to address them. You have to address them. And that's when I address them with some people. And of course, sometimes it's really, really hard, because sometimes you have parents which are very moderate, and so moderate that if I tell them, they expect me and the madrasa and the institution and an Islamic institution, rightly so, to be extremely orthodox. Now, because they expect us to be orthodox and very pure and
when you're saying they expect you to be orthodox, I mean, what does that mean? What do you mean by that?
I'm coming to it. Like, they expect the madrasa to be a certain way, the high standard of moral.
Now, like very pious and piety and virtuous.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, when I tell them about the contrast of a madrasa, sometimes there is a fear that these people will go off Islam.
Okay.
If they're very moderate, of course. I'm not talking about normal Muslim who's like, but they do get shocked, because they're like, oh my God, what? This happens in a madrasa? Astaghfirullah, and how can this be right? So they get very, and I don't want that as well. I don't want that. I want their belief to be taken away from them. So it's very hard. But to answer your question is like, because Alhamdulillah, your audience is very mature, I believe, in that sense.
Very mature.
And you
have spectacularly mature.
You have shocked
them.
They are. We love you all. You have shocked them already with a lot of things. So in the past 5 years,
simple, humble people. What can we shock the world?
No, mashallah, that's why they are mature. So what I would say is, of course, the pro is the knowledge, the teachers. The environment is a good environment in the sense of that you do get to focus on things. But then again, do I believe it's good that people are completely on their own? A lot of men alone with their soul.
A lot of.
Just let me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What this one? Yeah.
I just said a bunch of men together, and you just like so because it is an environment where there are a lot of men.
Okay.
There are a lot of men, and they're together, and it's like a boys' hostel, whatever, and they won't see the light. They don't see a lot of the world outside. So I do believe that when they do go outside, they do get. It's not easy for them to handle sexuality. I'm not talking about everyone. I'm not talking. Okay. There are cases, of course, but that's even in the, even a lot of. There have been a lot of studies, not just madrasa. It's the same with church, schools, or like different. If you're like bound, like enclosed in an environment,
segregation, extreme segregation can lead to some perversion.
Exactly, because it's a very, very long time, and it's not easy. So that is kind of one thing which I believe is a bit contrary. It should be a bit more open. So you're free to talk to a woman, and you know how to talk to a woman. It's not like the first thing you think about a woman is like, oh my God, a woman. That thought makes you crazy or something. You should be able to live in a society. You live in England, so you should be able to live in a society where there is a mixed kind of gender.
Because you find that, don't you, that with many religious people, and this doesn't have to be madrasa people, it could just be people who define themselves, let's say, as they are religious, as in practicing, or however they want to say.
Yeah.
Now, you find that many of them, I'm not saying all of them, but there's many amongst them that the moment they interact with the opposite gender, especially men towards women, maybe women towards men as well, but it's especially salient when men towards women, they seem to almost not know how to act. Like, so they get really awkward, they get really nervous, and they make the other person nervous. They, like they'll be, so let's say they're speaking to, I've seen people at universities, let's say, they will speak to sometimes non-Muslims fine, but the moment they approach, some won't even speak to non-Muslim women fine, but some may, like maybe they're a bit used to, okay, this is a receptionist, this is this. But the moment they speak to other women, especially Muslim, they get all kind of tense and awkward, and it's like it's so awkward to just watch that what's actually going on.
Yeah,
And
of course.
the conversation is just very ordinary. It could be something very formal even. It's not of a sexual nature.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm completely with you. And that
Hmm.
is one thing which, of course, I believe is not right. And the other thing I do, that's one thing, the sexuality part. I believe that is something in madrasas which I would like to reform, of course, but it's not going to happen. But whatever. Like I would like to see that
Uh,
in my lifetime. But the other thing I believe is the doctrine part. To be so narrow-minded in one kind of belief system, to say whatever we say is right and everything else is wrong. This kind of doctrine is also,
Dogma. That's really just dogma, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, it's extra. That is one thing which is also really not nice. To and again, I one thing I would what they don't do is tell the students what you could do when you go outside. What could you do with your knowledge? How can you execute it? How can you give a benefit to the communities you're in? So when they go out, they're like, okay, let's just teach Maktab 5 to 7 because they don't know anything else to do, or they become Imam Masjid and that's it. So because they don't know how to handle the outside world, and I think there should be, maybe there are, I don't know now about the situation in UK right now, there should be classes how to execute, because you've learned something for like so many years, you should know how to execute it, and the madrasa has the responsibility to make
And
sure that
how
you know
how to integrate meaningfully what you've done, but
exactly.
on
For
a
goodness, for
trajectory.
making,
Yeah, on a path where you could possibly branch out. So it doesn't have to. So, for example, career options. This is
exactly,
what, yeah, like
exactly,
a
yeah,
career option thing.
yeah. Because
Hmm.
when that's something they don't do, and Islam in the execution of teaching people what to do with your knowledge.
Madrasa and execution, yeah, bar. You keep saying you might freak out some of the people. They might go, yeah,
No, no,
why
no.
does he want madrasas to have executions?
No, 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 no. But that is one thing I would really, And I remember it was the whole dressing part. That was one
Mm,
thing which I remember. They were so strict. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever. There was this guy in our madrasa, and I'll never forget that.
sure.
These are stories that I actually have literally. I'm like, like I still think back, and I'm like, how
Do
could
tell
that
us
happen?
what's the story? Yeah.
So what happened is I was, because so people, you would know that, but people outside who don't know, who are watching, what happens in madrasa, if you're there, you get off like every 2 weeks you get 1 day off, and every 4 weeks you get like the weekend off. That is how it goes. So every two
Ah,
weeks
okay.
you can go on Saturday and come back on Sunday. Every 2 weeks, and every 4 weeks you can leave on a Friday and come back on a Sunday. That is
Okay.
but
Wow.
because I was from Germany, it didn't make sense to go home, of course. So
Obviously.
people who are from other countries, they used to stay, or even people who were from Cardiff at that time, or some people who were from Bristol, they never used to go home. So some people were from, so people from far away wouldn't do that because it was
Sure.
just too much of a hassle. So what happened is there was this one week, and me and a friend from Norway, we went to play football or something,
Hmm.
and we went outside. We were invited, and we went to this very mashhur and famous street in London, it's Green Street. So we
Ah,
went
right.
there. So in East London, and we went there. We had like football clothes on, and we had like trousers and like a football jersey,
Hmm.
and we had our jubbas, so the Arab kind of qamis, the shirts, those long Arab kind of
Thobes.
ropes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had them over our shoulder because we just came and had ball in our hand. Now we're walking, and there was this one guy who like was, who saw us. I think he was just pressing his own or something, but whatever. Um, we didn't know who it was, and we just went further. On Monday, when when the class starts, there was this guy who came into my class, and he said, my teacher wants to see you. I nearly said his name, but my teacher wants to see you. And I was like, okay. So I went there because I was surprised because this guy wasn't my teacher, because he used to teach Hifz class, the memorizing the Quran class. And I was in the Alimiya class. I was in the, because I already done the Hifz, I already memorized the Quran back in Germany. I was in the Islamic scholar classes. So I was like, why is he calling me? So when I went there, the other guy from Norway, I think he wasn't there, he was as well. So he said, Beto, and he said, say, and his whole class was full because his class was there. And he's like, I didn't expect this from you. And I'm like, what? And he was dead serious. He was like a big guy, you know, like strict guy. He was known to like beating up kids and stuff also. So he was like very strict. And he's like, I didn't expect this of you. I didn't know you have two faces. And I'm like, the hell is going on? And you don't have to imagine me as a 15-year-old guy. I was like terrified. I was like, what the hell did I do, man? And I was like, I don't know, you know. And he was like, I saw you. Don't think I didn't see him. Now, what happened? And he's like, I saw you on Green Street. And he's like, over here you have like a thobe and everything on, and you have a topi, and you know you have a hat. Over there you didn't have a thobe on. You were acting Western. And he's like, you are munafiq. He said to me, he said,
Munafiq.
he's like, you're what's it
You're a
called?
hypocrite.
A hypocrite. And I was like, what?
Of
And
the a hypocrite,
like,
munafiq is hypocrite of the Quranic standard. You know, that's because the munafiqun are the munafiqun of the Quran.
المنافقون في الدرك الأسفل من النار. That's
So
what he meant probably.
you're a hypocrite of the Quranic standard. Allah.
Yeah, so I was like, what? And he said, yeah, because you have two faces, and how dare you coming here and showing two faces and going outside and being modern, and you know how this, and you are supposed to be. I thought good of you. You're supposed to be a role model for people, and you act Western and this and that. And I was like, I said, I was seriously, I just stayed quiet, and I was so terrified. And I went, and I was like, at that time, I was like, I wish I could answer him right now, but I couldn't, of course, you know. And now I'm like, I swear there's some people who can't take that. Mufti, you know that some guys, they don't have the stamina to take
Stamina. Kya baat hai, yaar.
no, but you know, they don't have the courage to take that this kind of pasty and
Of
still
course,
stay in
yeah.
the same school and study. They would just call their parents and say, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys who couldn't handle it.
That's tough stuff. I don't think, to be honest, I think most people, you know, with the day and age having moved on as well, we are in an age of a very much shorter attention span now.
Yeah.
People require much more distraction. They require to be engaged often. Like they can't just sit there, and it's too much now for the younger generation. So this is also a rise in ADHD, which is probably another discussion. But so people now, the kind of madrasa lifestyle that you went through, and before you, I mean, I'm much older than you that I went through. These things that's of a very that's like almost a military grade training. It's not people. It's very difficult. We did get some parts a bit easier than others when we were abroad, because we were foreigners. They did sometimes they give you a bit of, they're not still happy with it, but they you kind of get away with it still because you're a foreigner.
More freedom to go out, for example.
Oh yeah, we could go out,
but
because
one thing I didn't have. I stayed like it was like a, you know.
You see, the difference there was because in Pakistan, in Karachi, as a foreigner, you are deemed with a certain privilege. Like, these people are from America, these people are from Canada, they're from the UK. There's like a privileged status to that. So because of that, you can get away with stuff, you can go out, even if you got caught with certain things. But if you were a local, you could still go out, but there would be, if you got caught, let's say, doing certain, I don't know, going to watch a movie, for example, you would be in serious trouble if you were a national, local. If you're a foreigner, you'd probably just get told off, and they'd be like, we're so disappointed in you, and and then you just have to say, okay, I'm never going to do it again, and then they're just kind of let you go.
No,
But
I would have. That was really, really. At that time, like the story I just said, that, for example, stay with me until today, and I'm like, how dare you doing that to kids, and how dare you saying these things? What kind of Islam do you preach? And it's not even like, if he would say something which is really a sin, there is nothing, absolutely nothing he could get that from.
there
It's
was
like, with the beard, you can actually say at least some fuqaha. You could say something at least with the beard of one face.
But this
But
stuff isn't really so confining people to the walls of an institute. This is nothing from an actual Islamic sense. This is just an insecurity. Perhaps people feel that, look, if they mix, maybe they'll turn away from this. And a huge part of this is as well institutionalization.
I don't know if you got it right. I don't know, because the what I was saying is he was he was telling us off because of the clothes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
saying,
yeah. Sorry, yeah. You're right.
Because
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
like, why are you wearing that? Why were you wearing normal clothes?
In our madrasa once in Dawra Hadith, I mentioned this before, right? This story that there was, we were in class, and in our class, I think there were almost 90 students. So they're about 85 to about 90. I can't remember the exact number now. But they, now, this one time, the kind of, what was he like? The deputy of the entire madrasa. He was one of our Shaykh al-Hadith, used to teach us Bukhari. So, and he was in charge of the foreigners section. He was the Nizam, the actual head of the entire local national section. So he came in and he goes, right. He goes, oh, and he's really annoyed, and he goes that there's students here, but he goes, kuch talib ilm aise hain. He goes that some students wo talib ke roop mein shaitan hai, shaitan. And he's really strict. And he goes, I mean, his voice is, they're not really students, they are devils. And we have now caught them. He goes that we caught their disgusting act, and we've found, and everybody's thinking, whoa, what's happened, and who have they caught, and what were they doing? And we're thinking the worst of the worst. We're thinking, what's bloody happened here? Because the way the build-up, the drum roll is, now we caught these shaitans. They were shayateen, just trying to deceive us that they are talabatul ilm and blah, blah, blah. And this, now we're going to watch, the consequences are going to be so severe. And it happened to be this Sri Lankan kid. I say kid, I mean, they were probably about 20. There were these two Sri Lankan guys, and he's asking for so one of them's the other one hadn't come or something. They go, where are you? Get up. And they the guy's up, and we're thinking, what the hell? He must have, God knows what. What did he do? What did he do? What did he do? And it turns out that on his day off, which was just Jummah over there, we get Friday off. After Jummah, in the towards the evening, he'd gone and he'd sat in some cafe that had a TV, and he was just wearing jeans. And he was just watching, I think he was actually watching football or something. And they were talking about the jeans. This was so I was thinking, what was the act? And they go, it's wearing jeans. I thought, cha. And you know what they did? They shaved his head as a punishment. And they obviously, I think, I can't remember whether they actually, because he was now quite grown up. So I can't remember whether they actually hit him, but I think with him, they shaved his head, and, he had to beg for whatever. And then they eventually let him stay. But I was like, whoa, okay.
There are a lot of Mufti.
I was thinking, this is fun, wearing jeans.
Normal people would, if normal, people would know what kind of mindset sometimes is so embarrassing for me. Like, for example, we had this, now we're talking about after my studies and stuff, like we're talking about like 6 years ago or something. There was this massive, and you probably know his name, but I'm not going to take his name because he's massively like especially in the Islamic world, which is like for ulama, he's massively known. For normal people, he might not be, because he's like a doctoring guy. He's a Shaykh al-Hadith from South Africa, and he's a massive guy. Like he has got his madrasa is probably the biggest in South Africa. So he is extremely well read in Bukhari, and he teaches Bukhari. So as I said, very respectful. He came to Germany, and I received him with my father, because alhamdulillah, my father has a lot of respect in that sense. My father received him and stuff, and we hosted him and everything. So there was this guy. We were sitting there, and my there was a lot of food, and he was there, and he came from the airport. Everyone was sitting there, and there was this guy who was like helping out, washing everyone's hands, and these kind of things, like very beautiful,
Humble.
akhlaq, washing everyone's hands before they eat.
Oh, as in pouring for them to wash their hands.
Pouring
or
water.
if he starts washing their hands, it'd get a bit awkward. If he starts like going,
you know what I mean? You know what
he says, "Yeah, give me your hands. Let me wash your hands." This is so beautiful. This is
he is the bridge.
Would be like, yeah, this is getting a bit. Is it just me, or is this slightly weird at this stage?
So it's like basically he was, it's like this. I'm just gonna show you for everyone so you don't.
It's just pouring water. They're washing their hands. Yeah.
So basically, Muft Abu, imagine he's just pouring.
No, I get it. I'm just joking. I'm joking.
I'm saying it for the audience, because you led them to a wrong track. So basically, he was doing that, and he was bringing the food and everything and helping out. So he was talking to the guy, and he was talking to some other Imam Sahib, which was our local Imam Sahib, the local Imam of the masjid, and he was talking to the local Imam of the mosque, this big sheikh, and he's talking, he's like, yeah, I once met this guy, and this happened. And then he said, and no, the other guy, the Imam of the mosque, was telling him, once this guy came to me in Germany, and he asked me this question, and the sheikh, he's leaning back, and he's like, mashallah. But he's like, oh, such a question. He's like, how was he? Was he like a religious person, or was he like a guy who didn't know anything about religious, like someone who hasn't a beard? He's like, वो दीनी तबके का था या कोई दाढ़ी मुंडा सा था? And now the guy who's putting the water on his hands didn't have a beard. And I looked at him, and I was like,
you made it extra awkward. You went,
no, I did it. I was like,
and then everybody in the room goes,
just stop moving. Freeze. I was like, and the guy, I swear, I felt so embarrassed, because he got red. And he's brown. It's hard to get red when you're brown. And he just got red, and I was feeling so embarrassed. I was like, what must he be thinking? That how can you say someone who doesn't know some who's not pious at all, like a guy who doesn't have a beard?
It's a very superficial way of looking at something.
It's unbelievable.
I want to ask here that look, because look, okay, there is naturally a huge amount of the knowledge you learnt, whether it's information, the environment, even there must have been people that were profoundly profoundly virtuous as well. Now, this madrasa phenomena, it obviously has, there are incredibly numerous, there's so many good things as well. Absolutely. That are nested or rested in the madrasa phenomenon. So from whether it's going to be the actual what is being taught, to the breadth of the not the topics, but the subjects.
That, a lot, very vast.
Exactly. So as an example, for people that don't know, many parts of the Arab world, when I visited certain ma'hads and different, they do have subjects as well. Obviously, they have a branch, they have certain things. But let's say Islamic institutes aren't as common. Now, therefore, people may study Islam in a university or they may study Islam in like a college or something, and you really cannot get the breadth, the
You
vastness
don't.
of the
Absolutely
curriculum
not. It
in
is.
these
It is
places. Yeah,
the
yeah,
curriculum they do give you. It's very vast. Like I remember in Qura, they were like, okay, 2 years, it's only Arabic first, okay,
yeah,
and after those 2 years, you have to decide in which kind of way you want to go. Well, you do want to go into Sharia, so fiqh
yeah,
stuff.
exactly. And
You
then
want
you just
to
get that, or you go
you
into
just
usul
get that.
hadith.
People do 2 years in that study and they
Yeah,
think they're ulama now. In that sense, the Dars Nizami, which has been from the Indo-Pak,
yeah.
kind of Deobandi, Barelvi kind of system, it is, very vast
It is
because
very vast, and you
yeah,
will also, and there are people like we, when we were there, for example. I mean, there were several, but let's say to name them, somebody coming straight to mind. I've spoken about him before. Sheikh Rahman was a great scholar. He is on some, I think some people have recorded him on a few YouTube events as well. He was he taught us Tirmidhi. He taught me privately the Muwatta. He taught of Imam Malik. He used to teach Bukhari in a girls' institute. He was the Shaykh al-Hadith. Incredibly, you know, it's not even right to say pious. He was just this awe-striking figure that just warranted
subhanAllah.
respect. And he just, from the moment he would walk into the class to how he would teach hadith with the kind of love, the passion, and the care for the students. And he was somebody very humble and very, he wasn't fussed about things. He wasn't, he just being in his company was something like, wow, okay, I've met people like this in my life that have
Yeah,
studied
absolutely
and they have knowledge. He wasn't just
regular.
like
No,
a
no, no, no.
Molvi Saab in the sense the man knew, the Sheikh knew Ilal al-Tirmidhi like this. He knew the Rijal, much of Rijal. He would speak of the Ikhtilaf. He used to teach Tirmidhi, which has Ilal in it. He had a passion for what he was doing and a piety, which is
You,
like, wow. So you do see these, you're amongst these people as well. And you are amongst the other things as well. You're seeing other things. And
it's like we had this one scholar. Maybe you've heard of him. I believe he's underrated because he's not that famous, because he doesn't want to be famous as well. If he had a lot of opportunities, but he doesn't want to be that famous. There
okay.
was a scholar in our madrasa, the Shaykh al-Hadith. There was Mufti Umar Farooq, and I don't know if you've heard of him. He is like I had. Unfortunately, I didn't have the privilege to study under him because I went for further studies then. But then he was the Shaykh al-Hadith, and the way he taught Bukhari, I don't think I have not met any. I'm not talking about just about knowledge, also the knowledge, but the way he taught Mufti, if I tell you, you'll be like, no one does that, because what he did, he used to
What did he do?
the
You've got us curious now.
exactly the regular time starts at 8. What he used to do, he used to start after Fajr
Okay.
and used to tell the students, it's don't not compulsory. If you want, you can come. But because he wanted not, wo ibarat se khatam karna jaldi jaldi. He
Yeah.
didn't want that. A lot of people just read because they don't have the time and they don't elaborate. And he didn't want
So,
that.
so
What
for people that don't know that, what it is that in the final year, Dawra Hadith, it is an incredibly profound year. If somebody that knows Islam and has studied Islam can get Dawra Hadith, on their, what can we say, in their resources of experience, if they can have that, it's basically a whole year where you study the major books of Hadith, mostly cover to cover. And what Sheikh is saying here is that because some of them, the teachers get pressed for time, that they need to finish the syllabus, and so then they start just they start like really just whizzing through a certain amount, zooming just really ripping through it, and that then compromises the quality of
Yeah,
what's being
because
taught.
they
Yeah.
don't have a choice. They have to
Mhm.
do. I also believe Dawrat is 2 saal ka hona chahiye.
It
It
should be
should be
in
for
two
2
years.
years because He gives you more space. So what he used to do, he used to start before Fajr, and then he used to start, and then after the class finished, he used to start in the afternoon again, like by phone, and then in the evening again. So the Bukhari students, or they were like occupied with him, and he used to, like, this guy. And that is one guy who used to say every qawl, like from Ahmad ibn Hanbal to that. He used to say every qawl, and that is one thing which I actually used to admire about him in that sense. Unfortunately, that was one thing I missed out. But I have to say that people like him, he's like, I remember he used to write letters to Mufti Taqi Usmani that if he had made a mistake and stuff, So he was extremely knowledgeable. So people like that,
and we did, in our Dora Hadith, when we did it, there was a period. So I don't know whether it was definitely by the last semester, but I can't remember whether it was in the second batch or not, but where it became like a full day event. So you had class time. Let's say classes began at something like, I think they used to begin at about 8:30 or something. Now, and you would study up till Asr time, then you'd have a break, and then it was revision after Maghrib. But then it became that after Maghrib you had a class, you had food, then after food you had a class up until midnight, and then a class would begin in the morning, not at 6:45. That would go on, and so there was this non-stop, and it was that part was just exhausting. Like we were just,
because your time spent off the brain.
And you're physically exhausted. Like I just remember just sitting, and you're reading and you're listening, and then it's like the next class, and you're like, I need to get up. And
I did regret is that what I don't like is they don't teach the Muwatta, that they don't Muwatta Imam Malik is not pushed very, if I would do the syllabus, I would put it in front of everything, and
Allah.
no, of course, Musab, there is no question about the authenticity, and you
see, the Muwatta, when we were doing Dawra, they did read it. They read it really kind of swiftly, because it was more a rasam, a kind of like a, it's just the ritual of it. But that teacher, Shaykh Azizur Rahman, who we had, he would teach us Tirmidhi, and he was really good. How you mentioned, like, he would always mention, I mean, Tirmidhi in the book mentions ikhtilaf of the fuqaha anyway, but he would expand on that and give all these evidences. And now I asked him to actually teach me privately. I would like to, do the Muwatta with, and this is not a custom in Pakistan. It's not.
It is not.
It's really weird that you go to a sheikh and say, I'd like to read this book with you. In the Arab world, this is very normal, and for people who are interested, in fact, it's the norm.
That's why I said they told me to go privately to them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. And here in the Indo-Pak world, it's almost borderline weird. Like,
why would he want to do that?
Yeah, like, why do you want to do that? So I said, I want to do this. And I said to him, look, I'd come to your house, when you're off. I'll come in my kind of break time, like with the Asr time would have, and I'd just read it to you there. And he did. He kind of like, he agreed, and I was really grateful. So we do get these, wow, there is this commitment, there is a passion. I've spoken in the past about a teacher I had, Shaykh Abdullah and he just had this passion and he kind of brought the place to life. And
small question, Sheikh, did you have the honor to study Abu Dawood under Sheikh Badi'uz Zaman?
No.
Oh, he was from Benodi town, and he used to teach there.
Right. So you have Binori town, which is in Karachi, which is kind of attributed to Maulana Yusuf Binori, and then you have Jamia Binoria, which is like a 15-minute drive from there. So Binori town was in Karachi, in this place. I've forgotten the actual name, but they used to call it Guru Mandir. The place was called that, but we were in Jamia Benoria is in an industrial estate called Site, Site, and so our madrasa is a separate madrasa. Although it's only the name is the affiliation. It's not really affiliated to the other madrasa. It's just Mufti Naeem, who set this up, was a graduate from there, but he just set up his own. Yeah, so we weren't. And Benoria, where we were, Jamia Benoria, it had a lot more accommodation for foreigners, and there were a lot more. It's better if you're a foreigner, you would enjoy it far more.
Oh no, he was in Benori town. He was there. He was there.
I was going to say that. Look, there's a question here.
Yeah.
Sure. That you see, this question is of institutionalization.
Yeah.
Because don't you feel, some I got into a discussion a little while back as well, and people sometimes say to me that, why don't you open an institute? Like, let's say they say to me that, oh, why don't you open an institute? And I've had this discussion with several people, and I've just said that, look, there is something, institutes, I get it, that they are, sure, like maybe on a madrasa level, like maybe in countries like, let's say, in Pakistan in a certain era or certain parts of the world, they work differently. But institutions, the thing about them is that they, a person, they almost take a person's life and soul. Like you have to give it your whole. They completely consume you. And it almost in a, if I can, as it were, a Darwinian sense almost, they become an organism onto themselves that then, you see, its survival becomes paramount and even precedes the objectives for why it was set up. So it's like if you bear with, like, what I'm trying to say is, let's say you set up a madrasa because you want to teach, because you have this passion. I want to teach people. I want to kind of, I want to kindle this flame, this love for learning in the hearts of people. But what happens is you set up an institute. Now, no sooner do you know it that the institutionalization has kicked in, that you need, for example, you have syllabi, you have curriculum, you have things that need to be met. There's bureaucracy all of a sudden. There needs to be results. The whole thing starts. Then there needs to be funding. How do you keep these things alive? So you need to now somehow, let's say, source funding for this. Now you're preoccupied with that. Expenses go up. There's competitions. Now, before you know it, let's say 10 years into it, 5 to 10 years into it, the institution has almost a life of its own as an institute that it needs to survive. You are now subservient to the institution,
of course,
in keeping it alive.
Yeah, of course.
And it's almost as though it is a living entity, as though it is an organism that needs to kind of, battle of the survival of the fittest. And what it will do is, your very purpose why you set it up will be sacrificed for the organism now.
Yeah, of course, because at the end of the day, you have to look. What they don't realize, they just don't. I don't know why they never ask themselves that question. When, let's say, Maulana Rashid Ahmed Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi, Maulana Qasim Nanotbi rahmatullah alayhi, he was the guy who founded Darul Uloom Deoband at that time, so like 150 years ago. So he started, they say, the famous story, he started under a tree, and then it started with one student and one teacher, and became this massive kind of institution around the world. And same goes with Barelvism, when they started and stuff. It's everywhere in the world. They have branches and institutions and everywhere. Now the thing is, what they don't realize is they did that, but the point of it was they just wanted to teach deen, whatever they believed in, okay? Sunni Islam. So the thing is, what they don't realize, by doing what they did, and keeping people institutionalized, they are actually going against the very thing they started of free thinking, if you think about it that way.
No, of course, of course.
Yeah,
S- yeah.
but what they also do is they make you bound. They like I remember this sheikh, and he's like the same sheikh I was talking about from that big Sheikh al-Hadith. I remember my dad was sitting there, and he's like, I told him, and he said about me, and he's like, mashallah, I am really proud of your son. He gives talks in German and stuff over here. So really proud, mashallah. And he said, okay, I always tell him, don't be afraid of anyone. You can talk whatever. My dad said that to the sheikh. He said, I'd always tell him, just say whatever you want. No one's here to cut off your tongue in the sense of that you're not allowed to say these things and that thing. So just say whatever you want. Just say what is haqq, what is true. So the guy was like, and my dad said, he just said like for a second, he's like, forget Barelviism or forget being a Deobandi or something. Just say haqq, and he just say the truth. And the guy was like, yeah, but what are you trying to say? Of course, ulama Deoband are on haqq, So he got triggered like that because someone was speaking. He wasn't even speaking against the institution, but for just a second, he was like, how can you say speak for haqq and not for Deobandism? It's the same. That there is no way around it.
You see, when I'm saying institute, I'm transcending even madrasas. You see, any institution, this is the issue with institutionalization, regardless of whether it could be a university, it could be a college, it could be a ma'had, it could be a madrasa, it could be other institutions. What happens is there's almost like you see, symbolically or metaphorically, it's like you breathe life into it. Now that it becomes culturally alive. Like there's this really interesting book as well called Darwin's Cathedral, and it's speaking about social organisms, like culture, for example, or different things which are they behave as though it is a living organism, except it's something else. So the institute becomes like a living organism that needs to be fed, to be alive. And I don't just mean fed by money. Obviously money is a part of it, but it will then, the person themselves will be expendable. So for example, you could spend your whole life setting up an institution, and at the end of it, you see, the institution is, you will it'll consume your whole life, and then somebody will just come and pick it up and carry on with it. It's not like you see, it becomes bigger than you. Now sure, that may seem in a good way, like people may think, well, oh, that's because that's a good thing. But in the other way, it's not just bigger than you, it's bigger than the purpose for which it was set up. Its survival becomes integral, as opposed to its obviously they're going to say, well, the reason this institution exists is for A, B, and C, but its survival, it's like saying a person is a doctor, sure, and he wants to help people, but first and foremost there is a survival instinct of staying alive.
Of course, because he is bound to the institute he's in, like to a hospital or whatever. Like that's why a lot of these scholars, a lot of scholars don't, like, to come back to the Islamic perspective. Of a lot of these scholars don't know the stuff, to be honest, that you say or I say. I'm not saying they're stupid, but they just don't get told.
You can't say that.
He's gonna put the meme on of that guy, stupid. No, but they're not stupid.
Takashi.
But what they what they always do is maybe they don't get told or whatever, and those ones who do know the hadith or whatever, which they don't tell the public, they know it, but they can't tell anyone because they're afraid to lose. Like, for example, we had this discussion, I think once, that about Dr. Yasir Qadi and Dr. Zakir Naik Saab, that they came out now and said, about earrings and masturbation.
Oh, wait, I didn't know about the earrings. What did they say about the earrings?
No, but I think Dr. Yasir Qadi were like, he was like, I can't, it's not haram. You can't say it's haram.
Oh, has he
said,
said that about
he
earrings?
said that, and he didn't.
Wow, I didn't. Did people know this? I didn't know that. Sheikh Yasir
He said,
Qadi Sahib
he
said
said, he said,
earrings are.
it's not, it's not haram. Illa Abu Layth. For him.
Was this after I got my ear? I wore an earring. He said it's not haram. So
After you took it off, he's like,
after I took it off, I don't have it on. Look.
No, but he actually said that, and Dr. Zakir Naik, and remember you saying that what kind of angers you or like puts you a bit off is you don't buy that they didn't know that before. I know your argument. You say, okay, of course, because I said it takes courage for them to have their kind of audience and then say these things, because their audience is not as evolved as your audience, in that sense. But you then, of course, came with the right argument. And
What
said,
what
okay,
stage of evolution are they at? What stage of evolution?
let's not get into that. But
Right.
you said you don't buy, but your argument is right as well. You said you don't buy that they didn't know that before. So why were they hiding?
I mean, yeah, and I think.
Let me just
Oh,
finish that.
sorry. Yeah.
Like Dr. Zakir Naik Sahab, he even said in the beginning of the video, he said, I think since years, he said that. He's like, I think since years, this question comes up 5 times a day.
Which question? Which question?
About masturbation.
Oh,
he said this question comes up every single day, and I was
no pun intended.
And he even said I was trying to avoid it. He said that openly, and he said that, but now I can't avoid it, because at the end of the day,
the action, not the action, the question. You need to. You can't use vague language. We don't. You said now.
By the way, this is iced tea. Clarify for everyone.
Nobody would doubt you, Sheikh, about drinking iced tea. You're discussing more pertinent and important topics. So eventually, Sheikh, Dr. Zakir Naik said, I no longer can avoid it. Ab yahan pe sawal hai ki it. What does the pronoun go back to? The it.
Wow, kaun sa wala wow tha? So,
wow al-atf. Wow lil-mughayara. Yeah, wow. Wow. Wow al-isti'nafiyya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When but the funny thing, the thing is, he did say it then, and then of course then they bring in Ibn Hazm and stuff, but before that they don't even mention Ibn Hazm at all.
It is interesting that it's interesting how these topics become so such irritants for people. Like these topics are really well, you think in a way that I don't get what these are like, like defining points for people, and you think that I don't get where this kind of religiosity has come from in that perspective. This is a very pure. This is Puritanism.
Yeah, it is the ultra orthodox way of kind of that they have created for themselves, which has backfired on them. Like, for example, the problem is every institution had that is my perspective. Every institution has its lifespan, and I did an analysis, unofficial analysis, and I believe Deobandism, Barelviism has had the lifespan they had for like 150 years, and now people are waking up.
I mean, the internet's changed the world.
Like, for example, I always, some people always. A guy came to me and he's like, oh, he was extremely against engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza, and he was like, oh, this guy is not even a scholar. Why doesn't he even talk? He's just an engineer. What the hell? And this and that. I don't care what he says. He's not allowed to talk about Islam. And I said to him, I'm like, okay, let's put it that way. Let's say he's not a scholar. Okay, let's just give him. Okay, he's not a scholar.
He is a scholar.
No, but let's just assume he's not a scholar. Okay, because he's not, like he says himself, "मैं madrasa se nahi padha hu." I haven't studied in a madrasa, so let's say he's not a, and he says that's why I don't put my Maulana or something in front of myself. Okay, let's say he's not a scholar for 1 second. So how has the day and age changed, and how here you can see exactly how the lifespan of Deobandism and institutionalization in Pakistan has shrinked, that a non-scholar, an engineer, can come and literally just break the institution foundations in these countries, that he's getting so popular that young people are saying these nara kya kehte hai wo na मैं wahabi ना मैं wahabi ना
Babi
मैं babi मैं हूँ muslim
kitab
ilmi kitabi.
ilm
You know, that
kitabi.
nara has become so popular that people are like, you know, show me the whole thing, because he came with something in a country which people were waiting for.
You know, that's that.
He
Quick
came
point
at the right time.
on that. Quick point on that. That you see, part of that is the. You see, we're speaking of institutionalization. It's the unwillingness to adapt. You see,
Exactly.
part of a survival mechanism is that an organism must adapt to its environment.
Yeah.
So I remember there's a video online where I don't know if you know. Do you know Gary V? You know the one who speaks about the he's huge. He speaks about business, entrepreneurship all the
I
time.
probably know him, but
He's
not
always he's really popular anyway. You definitely must know him by face. He's online, you know, everywhere. He speaks about how to kind of get into business, always encouraging people. But there's a clip of his quite slightly old, where he's addressing the store, the kind of shop, if you like, or the company Toys R Us. There was a huge company in the UK. I don't know if you remember it from when you
it's
were
here
here.
in Germany as well. Yeah.
Right, but I'm pretty sure it's extinct. It's finished now in the UK. I'm pretty sure it is. But he's got this video on. He's just sitting in a car and he's giving this explanation, and he says, "Well, why did it go bust?" And he says, "Well, because when it came, they refused to go online." And he said, when in the early 2000s, when when things were going online and everybody was, and sorry, not the early, the kind of late 2000s, when everybody was going online and doing stuff, and they weren't, because they were saying, this is our thing. You come into the store, but then they just became a dinosaur.
Of course, that's how it is.
And that's obviously in the corporate world, but it's with everything that
Everything.
with the day and age, with the internet, if you do not adapt to it, you will just become extinct. For the most part. I mean, maybe some people won't, but there will be a huge
Like, for example, like, let's take, there's Deobandism, there is this Brahmanism, but then after that, you might have noticed, of course, in the late 90s, there was this big impact of Wahhabism, Salafism, Wahhabism. Before that, they weren't that popular amongst youngsters. But in the beginning of the 2000s, when the wars started to happen in Afghanistan, in Iraq, they came in and they started
the Salafis.
Exactly. That was their prime. That was their
absolute. The Salafis were, in the UK.
They were so strong in Germany as well. It was
the Salafis in the late 90s had risen massively, like this meteoric rise. They came out of nowhere, and they had people converting, and they were speaking about Bukhari and Muslim, and people hadn't heard of this, and nobody had at that, in the 90s.
The Prophet said, and always ask for Dalil, do you want to follow Imam or the Prophet? And these kind of arguments, they really resonated with a lot of people, because even at that time, the whole Deobandism and Barelvism and institutionalization was a lot of, for people, they were getting sick of it. So people in my age, they were actually...
Well, I think it wasn't really active on the English-speaking front. It wasn't really, as in madrasas existed, but there weren't any. I remember in the UK, when I was a teenager, so when I began to get interested in, let's say, trying to learn something more about Islam, I must have been about 16. Now, at that time in English, in Birmingham, we had Sheikh Riyad al-Haq. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
when I was about 17, I think I went to some of his. I can't remember whether it was 16,
When you were
17. I went.
17, Sheikh Riyazul Haq used to give
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
lecture,
He
give
used to
lecture
in Central Mosque.
already.
Yeah, yeah. So he was giving them, or I think he must have been about 25, 26 or something.
Really?
So he must. I'm assuming he must have been about because
He has good Arabic, by the way. He has good Arabic, I have to
yes.
say.
So or he must. I'm pretty sure, unless I'm getting his age wrong, or unless he was in his. But he was a sheikh already. So whether I'm assuming he was about 25 at least,
He's from
maybe
Bury, right? He's Farid
give or
from Bury.
yeah. So he was a graduate from Bury, and
Yeah.
his English speeches were just so almost revolutionary because there was nothing like that available. And his English is it's really good, especially
It's really good. It's
his
really
English is good, but you see, in that time, it was exceptionally good. I mean, it was just, whoa, it was incomparable to anything because now, okay, you can find people who can speak English,
Yeah.
but if you go to, I don't know, 96, 97, you're not going to get many scholars. You will
And
get
also,
certain people.
the Sheikh has a very posh kind of accent.
Yeah, and he's
It's more beautiful. You know,
was it? However, I was approached in the
what he
supermarket.
does with perfection. That is my theory. What he
Yeah.
does, why people
Yeah.
love to listen to him. He has this posh English, but his tajweed is really good. So he switches in a millisecond. He says
No,
like,
it is undeniable he had a captivating charm.
absolutely.
He was you know, back then he was something like he was just so captivating because one, you couldn't believe that, wow, there's a Maulana,
Yeah.
because your only understanding of a Maulana was some imam in a masjid who'd come from Pakistan or India, and they were a Maulana, and they spoke, even if they spoke English, it was with an accent, and it wasn't some kind of profound English. It was just enough to get by. For a Maulana to be young, to be to be very eloquent in English, to be kind of captivating, to have this presence about him, it was just something else. It was like, whoa, what's going on here? And so he emerges at that time. There were two other people that emerged as well at the time. I don't know if you remember Sheikh Faisal. He was from the kind of Salafi thing. Sheikh Faisal, Jamaican
Remember
convert.
Sheikh Murtaza Khan?
Yeah, I think Sheikh Murtaza Khan is from the Salafi thing, Ahl
From the
Hadith.
Salafis with the long beard. Do you remember him? His
I've
videos,
heard of
I
him.
remember, you have to imagine, Mufti, his videos in the mid 2000s, his videos went viral in
Yeah,
Europe,
okay.
in Germany and other countries, in Netherlands.
Wow,
And I was
okay.
like, he had a lot of people knew him, although he was from it was unbelievable.
Do you remember when Sheikh Hamza Yusuf kind of blew up on the
That
whole
was,
on the scene?
but the problem is Sheikh Hamza Yusuf blew up in an international way.
Yeah.
Salafis always had this, this. I remember, you won't believe.
They didn't like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf.
Never, ever.
No, of course not. Of
I
course
remember in Madrasa they told us not to listen to him, and I regretted it so much that I started listening to him so late in my, same with Sheikh Dr. Professor Ramdi Saab, I never used to listen
But
to him.
Ghamdi Saab has just in the last few years kind of with online kind of blown up because of his
But in
clips.
Germany, in Pakistan, he was always well known because he used to appear on the TV all the time.
Okay, I don't know about that.
Always.
I only heard of Ghamdi Saab in the last, I think it's been 4 or 5 years. That's it.
No.
And you know when his small clips started to get circulated on YouTube. Like,
no. Ramdi Saab's fame in the Urdu language was extremely well known since the last 20 years because
no, it wasn't. It was.
I'll tell
I
you
don't
why.
think it. I'm not saying he wasn't known to people who knew him, but he wasn't famous. You know, there's a video of his.
I tell you why.
There's his own video where he's saying, he himself is saying that I have only in the last 2 years gained kind of worldwide recognition.
Worldwide recognition is something else. Yeah. But if in Pakistan, on I think Hum TV and even on Geo, he used to appear every week with some lectures. So he had this, Because if you're on TV, everyone knows you. Like,
But I don't. How old would Hum TV be? I don't even think these channels are that old.
What I can tell you, he used to appear on TV in 2005 already. Every week he saw. Yeah. So for the older world, maybe, but that is true.
I don't like when I was in Pakistan. I'd never heard of him.
Yeah, because they hate him.
No, but not even heard of him as like we heard of other names that they would hate on. So, for example, they would hate on certain names. They would say such and such is Gumrah, such and such is like this. Never heard of him. I never
see a lot of discussions on Ramdi. For example, if you type on YouTube, the old discussions.
No, I'm not saying he didn't exist, but I mean, when I lived in Karachi like 6 years in the Madrasa scene, I never heard of him at all, and nobody ever mentioned him.
What time span are we talking about?
So I was there till about 2005, I think, about that kind of time. So
I heard about after 2005.
So now I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm not saying he didn't exist, and I'm not saying he didn't write stuff and he didn't speak. Like maybe he did speak, but he didn't. Like I think the attention has only gone to him in the last probably, in the last 5. Maybe 6 years, I don't even think 6 years.
Like, for example, speaking about myself, I was told not to listen to this man. And I started listening about like 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you, his thing there's a clip of his where he's discussing this. He says, and the clip is about, I think about 3 years old or something, or about 4 years old, where he's saying that, wow, I didn't think, he says, I never expected that at this late in life, I would suddenly kind of blow up. He says that I thought, because he's an old man, he says I did all my life and I said all my things. I wrote books, I lectured, and nobody, few people listened and others didn't. And he says, but now for some reason, he says, I find this that I've kind of blown up and people have kind of have come across me.
Randi Sahib is another guy where I say, of course, with you as well, where I literally I had to take a few breaths where I said, Alhamdulillah, there are people who have my opinions and I'm not alone, and I don't have to be scared to say my opinion, because there are people.
There are people who copy your opinions.
No, there are people who believe that Aisha is 6, and
seeing the age of Aisha, of course.
Seeing Ramdi Sahib saying 10 years ago on Pakistani TV, masturbation is allowed.
Did he say that?
Yeah, and people wrote in the comments of that old video, people are writing now, Buddha satya gaya hai. So mean stuff like Buddha pagal ho gaya, bisharam Buddha, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem.
He is, people like Ramdi Sahib, because of his Urdu, he is such a kind of godsend for people who, because they don't, otherwise they don't have any access to Islamic knowledge apart from the other means. And because his Urdu is so eloquent,
Absolutely.
It's wow.
And he has a lot of respect. I was watching the video of Mufti Tariq Masood a few days ago, and I think it was a new video, and he was speaking about Ramdi. He hates Ramdi Sahib in the sense of
Who's this,
guns him down. Mufti Tariq Masood, the guy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Guns him down. He has some weird. He always talks about marriages and always har banda chacha shandiya kar le aur ye kar le aur wo kar le. So he's like
he's another one that's kind of he's become a sensation in the last
but then again
bunch of years with just clips and being
just with clips. And he said, for example, he says a lot of mean stuff about Ramdi Sahib, and then he said, he does. There's no respect from my side for a human. And then he said one thing he said just a few days ago. I watched this video and he said, but Ramdi Sahib, the problem with Ramdi Sahib is you can say whatever you want to him. You can gun him down. And the man just doesn't get angry. Ramdi Sahib is never angry. And it makes me more angry that he doesn't get angry. And I was like, you're saying something good. And you're like, can't you just praise him?
Yeah.
Can't you just praise him for once?
I think it's the synchronicity of events is so wow as well, because in a way, you see, Ghamidi Saab, it's one, his obviously his kind of elocution, his eloquence, his vast, his kind of comprehensive perspective on things,
Yeah.
but then also his age.
Yeah.
You see, it's an interesting factor because he's at an age of also wisdom and composure
And his
and
life, where he's got life threats. He's
oh
left
yeah,
his
yeah, 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 yeah,
country.
yeah,
There is this emotional moment where he shares, and he said he was in Malaysia, and someone sung the national anthem in the embassy or something, and he said, I started crying all over because I was missing my home, and then going to America, of life death threats of his family because of views like saying Aisha isn't 6, and what the hell, what kind of intolerant kind of, and
Yeah,
he
I
had,
heard the story that him saying that that the masjid he used to go to,
yeah,
where he was living in Pakistan, asked him to stop coming to the mosque because they said, "Look, with all due respect, they said we respect you, but we fear that to target you, they may target the mosque." And
yeah.
so innocent people may get kind of caught up in this and shot and
A lot
killed or
of
whatever.
mosques did that. Like, for example, do you
Wow.
know the late Rahmatullah Ali, Dr. Israr Ahmad?
Right.
You know,
Okay. No, I didn't know about this any incident with him. No.
yeah, Dr. Israr, but you know Dr.
No,
Israr.
of course,
Yeah.
everybody knows about Dr.
Another
Islam.
guy who used to get, it's so funny, मैं कहा मौलवियों ने किसको नहीं छोड़ा, they got him, they're like, you're not an alim, you're not this, you're not that, get off the screen, get off doing that. But then he killed it with his tafsir, in the sense of course I don't agree with a lot of stuff which he has with the khilafah and stuff, but you can't deny that he does good tafsir. He does the tafsir, he
Look,
does.
any person who
Yeah.
is working to help people on their journey of faith is an asset.
He's not from the
Like,
institution, you
yeah,
understand? That's
of
why
course, of course, of
they
course.
attack him. Again, back on your topic which you were talking about, they attack them because they're not from the institution, and they
Yeah.
don't say I'm part of this and I'm not part of this. They act individually. That's why someone like Dr. Zakir Naik, in the beginning, they used to hate him a lot. Nouman Ali Khan was hated extremely in the beginning. I remember.
Nouman Ali Khan, to be fair, Nouman Ali Khan had done. I mean, he got obviously the envy and these issues
In the
because people
beginning, the
said,
alim
well,
thing,
they
why
said
is
he
he
wasn't
doing
an alim, he shouldn't call
that?
himself sheikh, and he didn't used to call himself sheikh, but they would say, don't call him sheikh,
Yeah.
don't call him this.
Why you think tafsir?
But because he focused, and in many ways, this is the same thing with Dr. Israr. And I think Nouman Ali Khan may have met Dr. Israr as well.
Yeah, he
So,
did.
yes, and kind of taken some classes with him and stuff, if I recall correctly. But you see, what they both centered on, and especially Nouman Ali Khan, was the Quran. And it's interesting that nobody really focuses entirely on the Quran.
On the Quran, yeah.
And so because he did an excellent job. Like let's be honest, Nouman Ali Khan's tafasir were
In
there was
today's time,
nothing that could meet it in the
in
English language.
English language,
You
there is
couldn't
no
touch it.
one, no more. Like now, after all these years that I've met some ulama, they were like, now because they can't hate him anymore, they're like, because you can't deny the
I mean,
work. And he
yeah,
was like,
now obviously because of the other matters, but the thing was that he was somebody. I said to Nak once, we were years ago. He was in the UK. He was doing a tour, so this is probably going back to something like 2016, 2015. It's going back to that kind of time, so about 7 years ago. And we were going somewhere, and I said to him, I said, well, that's it. He had this tour in Scotland, so I was driving him there, and I said to him that, I said that from the English, this is the English speaking world, yeah, there isn't a single uh let's say ustad or Islamic figure, yeah, there isn't a single figure that has global, if I can use global for the sectarian sense, yeah, that has universal acceptance, that I can't think that I said I can the only people that ever come to mind, like you can mention the biggest of names, like Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, is huge. He doesn't, like, let's say Salafis will not like him, certain other groups will not like him. I mean, now maybe more so other groups, but before, when he was liked by, let's say, the majority of people, Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, but you still get so many certain factions that don't like him. Now, I said I can just think of just two names only. I said that one is Imam Siraj Wahhaj. I don't know if you know Imam Siraj Wahhaj.
I know.
From that he was an imam that I saw. He was just spoke about good motivation stuff, Islamic stuff. He kept it kind of down to earth. He wasn't speaking about complex issues. And I've seen people who were Salafi listen to him, people who were Sufi listen to him, people who were this group listen to him, people who there was this universality about his message. And the second I said is you to Noman Ali Khan. I said that I've heard people from all denominations listening to you, and that is wow. Like you don't really get that in the you don't get it anywhere, let alone in the West.
The only thing I can think close of those two people is probably a guy like Maulana Tariq Jamil, who has in the Urdu speaking world.
No, but the Brailwis wouldn't listen to him.
No, the Barelwis do, but the Salafis don't. They're like, because Maulana Tariq Jamil has this, even Shias.
No, are you talking about now or before Maulana Tariq?
Now.
Okay, so now, because Maulana Tariq Jamil Saab now is different to Maulana Tariq Jamil Saab, let's say 10 years ago. Not that he was a bad person then, but he was...
Now he's so big that even his own tablighis have ikhtilaf.
Yeah, so now, you see, because in the last... I don't know, whatever it is, let's say, whether it's going to be 5, 7 years, whatever it is, Maulana Tariq Jamil Saab has come onto this unitive mission of trying to unite people and bring them together on one path, and that way he's trying to say it doesn't matter what your denomination is. This has really, it's a different mission, and he's been on that for a few years now.
Unbelievable. When I heard, I'll just ask you a question that I want your perspective on that, but I have to ask you this question. But just to be fair, when I heard about, I was appreciating the unity work that he's doing and everything. But when I heard Sheikh that he went to
was it
Maulana Tariq Jamil?
Okay.
When I heard that he went to this area of prostitutes and actually went there and gave them
scandal. Why are you setting a scandal for the Sheikh? He's such a noble, innocent, sweet Sheikh. And you start your discussion by saying he went to this area. Oh, okay, so here's how the story goes. Right, so there's this area full of prostitutes. No, I'm joking.
Cut me off here. People will think, I don't know what about montage?
No, keep going. You can't stop here.
Keep going.
How can you slam the brakes there? That's how can you put it on me? I'm trying to.
Hamari cat humpe attack.
So yeah, sorry, you're saying it.
So Maulana Tariq Jamil, when I heard that he went to this, the street, I think it was Hiramandi, where they're all prostitutes, this area, and he took them off the jobs and everything, and he made them, I think, financially stable.
Oh, I thought you were going to say unemployed. I was going to say. That's not a nice way to word it, that he made them unemployed. I was going to say, come on. Sheikh's doing such a good thing. You can't use words like unemployed. That's just like a
epic history.
Such a curveball to say, well.
No, so when he got them off, I can't stay serious. Sheikh.
No,
so
sorry.
When he got them off the prostitution, he got them off, and he made them, they did, I think they were in a jama'ah or something, and then they, did tablighi work, and he got them made them, financially a bit stable so that they don't have to do this kind of work and leave the whole prostitution business. And it was when I heard that, he went to the transgender Khwaja Sirajan ko kehte hain, transgender community in Pakistan.
He's done a lot of work with the transgender community in Pakistan.
Them, no one even talks to them. They do their own janazas. No one goes there. It's unbelievable how discriminated these Muslim transgenders are. And he goes there and he made them, brought them into the Tablighi Jamaat and gave them shelter and everything. It's unbelievable. When I heard these kind of things, I was like, it is the things he does.
The man is, look, let's be honest, the man is a saint in what he does.
And the criticism he gets from other ulama. I remember that kya naam tha unka? Mufti Zarwali Khan, rahmatullah alayhi.
Zarwali Khan. Oh, right, yeah. But but Mufti Zarwali wouldn't really spare anyone, would he?
Galiyan dete the. He used to, he said, iska to, I remember Maulana Tariq Jamil even reacting to it. He said, iska to pata nahi nasab tawaifon ka hai and stuff. And Maulana Tariq Jamil, he was so, and he said, मैं कभी भी नहीं बोलता हूँ, मुझे बहुत बहुत बड़ी गालियां लोग देते हैं, लेकिन आप मेरे नस्ल को तो छोड़ दो. He said, at least don't cuss my, don't swear on my parents and stuff. And then he actually said, he rectified, and he's like, let me just clarify, this is my lineage. And I'm like, Mala, why are you even saying that? You don't have to go into. And when Mufti Zarwali Khan died, the first tweet was from Maulana Tariq Jamil. And he said, Inna lillahi, and I may Allah wish him. And that is something very big in this day and age between ulama and then, people.
Yeah, that is true. I was going to say, I've seen.
Which are maybe not authentic and a lot of stories, But then again, Mufti Sahab, that is, you can do ikhtilaf with respect.
No, of course. I was going to say this. It's interesting because this phenomenon, this unitive, collective effort, there was a similar effort by, I believe, one, I think, did Mufti Rafi also get a bit into that? And secondly, Maulana Saeed Asad from the Brelvi community did a lot of that as well, to the extent that he's also, if I recall correctly, he's also championed the stance of the age of Aisha as well. And he's a very notable, respectable kind of scholar from the Brelvi community. So, but this whole thing of the unity, that's something that he's really... that I was aware of, especially a few years ago. I take it his efforts are still ongoing. I don't know about with COVID and what happened, but he was making this huge effort to try to bring different groups together, to speak about unity, to speak about...
He did have a discussion with this Deobandi alim Maulana, kya naam uska? Ilyas Guman. The one that does this discussion and debate part, which I don't really, but whatever. He had this, and I remember him, him gunning him, and Maulana Ilyas Guman was like, you have to write that our akabir are not kafir. Aise to nahi ho sakta hai that you write that our akabir are kafir, and we're going to sit with you, write it, sign it. And he's like, I'm saying it, isn't that enough? He's like, sign it. And I was like, it was just like, I'm like...
No, I really respect that, because it takes... Look, listen, this thing, when you get fame, like any scholars that have this level of following, like you mentioned earlier on, Dr. Zakir Naik, you said Sheikh Yasir Qadi, these people who get a certain amount of following. Now, what happens is for them to not toe a line, or in this case, it's not just about, okay, there you were speaking about they, let's say, turned on certain fatwa. Here you're talking about they're going complete out on methodology and saying, look, let's harmonize. It's not about we're not going to call people kafir, we're not going to, and I'm going to go there and try to visit people, I'm going to try to it takes so much courage, because at that stage of life you will now start getting boycotted by the people who've made you and followed you. And
like Mufti, like one thing I really liked about Mufti Munibur Rahman, who is I think he died, right? Did he die? I think he
I'm not
just
sure now. Now
but
you
he's
say
a
it
big
like that, and
he
now
is
it's
one of the biggest
if he
names.
hasn't passed away, it's going to make us
He's
just sound really cruel now.
he's one he's,
Yeah,
he's
Rekha Abdul, you keep embarrassing us because now I need to make sure we're not misleading people.
माफ कर दे मुझे. I was like, you're getting me into trouble here. I was like, are you just googling if he died or not?
Yeah,
Seriously.
I've got to find out. So, right, so obviously I've got now that you've brought it up.
Okay,
Um,
check it out.
right, it says Mufti of Pakistan. Right, let's see.
Is or was. That's the only
It
thing.
just that's a good point. It just right. So this is hardly helpful. It just seems to
Inshallah, he's
no,
alive.
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't say that he's passed away in this. So
Okay, inshallah, he's alive. So basically, Mufti Munibur Rahman, I remember
yeah,
him writing something in Akhbar mein, in some newspaper or something. He has this column where he still writes, I think. And he actually said about Eid Miladun Nabi, the birthday of the Prophet.
yeah, he's alive. He's alive.
Yeah.
Ab Khamkha, you're making people pass away.
He
You're trying to ease up the workload of the angel of death. Yeah.
yeah, I'll get
No,
back.
may Allah bless these
to that.
people,
I
bless
hate
their
that.
lives, grant them very long lives. Ameen.
No, but khair, but what he said in a column, I think he wrote in a column, and he was talking about Eid Miladun Nabi. And at this stage of his life, he actually said that Eid Milad, I accept that is not proven from Quran and Sunnah. After all these years, he did that, and I respect him for it. I respect him, but he did say the bid'atul hasana argument, of course, he had to. But then he did say it's not proven from Quran and Sunnah. And him saying that is not a small thing. Mufti Sahib knows it is a big thing on that stage. And
I admire people like that can actually have the courage.
From the position that he is on in Barelvianism, his whole following is Barelvis, to say that it's not an easy thing at all. It's like, and that's why I do admire people like that as well. And there is this famous thing of Mawlana Tariq Jamil quote saying, he said, Barelvis say Deobandis are kafir. Deobandis say Barelvis are kafir. Salafis say Deobandis are kafir. Sufis say they maybe they are wrong. Shia say Sunnis are kafir. Sunnis say Shias are kafir. And then at the end he said, who's going to go into Jannah, by the way? And that is so right if you think about it. Who's going to go into Jannah if everyone is kafir? If there is a place called Jannah, who is it created for then? If everyone is just gunning each other down,
Yeah, no, I do. I think that there is, there is a growing need and a growing pressure as well from from bottom up, where you're getting from the masses, the common people up, for a unitive expression that they want more harmony, they want, and to see then certain figureheads at a certain stage of their life just start to say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter, I'm going to risk all of this, and I'm going to say, look, let's spread love and harmony. And I that's honestly, it's wonderful. There's I've mentioned I've mentioned on a few of my talks, since you mentioned the greater kind of Brilvi ulama, that I've this year come across Sheikh Suleiman Misbahi, Dr. Sheikh Suleiman Misbahi sir.
I listen to him every single day, by the way.
I try, if not every day, every other day, to hear a little, at the very least, a little kind of bayan, unless something I'm totally preoccupied with certain work or something. But I find it's just wow, like seriously speaking
but just to like maybe add to your message, I think you would say the same thing to the viewers as well. It's not what Mufti Sahib was talking about. It's not about the doctrine or the dogma.
Oh no, not at all.
It's not about that every single belief he has, Mufti Sahib or me have the same belief, especially when it comes to.
I don't even think it's about belief. It, in the sense, it's not about dogma.
Not about when he says it a lot. you know, when he talks, sometimes he says, "Hum to hayat mein mante hain, hum to babon mein mante hain, hum to mante hain." So when he says we do believe that this can happen. So of course, when I listen to him, for me, his voice. Allah has given him a voice. Allah has given him a way to express himself that is so heart
That it
touching.
plucks at the heartstrings, doesn't it?
It does.
And I tell you something, he's always in how the clips I've watched, he's always smiling, and he's always calling towards love, and he never calls to. I mean, I think maybe, you know, generally speaking, he never calls towards you know, a demonization. He's more interested in positivity.
Adab,
Yeah.
akhlaq. Yeah,
And
he said, for
yeah.
example, he was talking about the Prophet, and he was like, he was talking about when you go to Medina, don't pick up your phone and this, and why you're doing that. And he said, you know, of course, that now that's his belief, but we're okay with it. He says, you know, when I go to Lahore, every second day I go to Lahore, मेरा लाहौर जाना होता है, तो मैं तो दाता साहब के पास भी नहीं जाता कि वो मुझे देखेंगे और मुझे देख के कहेंगे कि भाई शर्म नहीं आती, मिस भाई तो आ गए फिर, मतलब अपने आप अपने करतूता तो नहीं देखियां. That means, like he says, I go to this shrine in Lahore in Pakistan. There is this shrine which is called Data Darbar, and it is a well-known Maulana Ali Ajveri Rahmatullah Alayhi, I believe, a guy who was very pious, and Rahmatullah Alayhi, he was probably, you hear good things about the guy, you know.
Of course.
But they
great
made
historical figure, centuries, very, very old.
Like a shrine. And it's like there are some people who actually literally go there and believe that they can, most of the people that go there believe he can see them, talk to them, and, you know, all this kind of stuff, which is of course something we don't.
You know, I feel
he was
that
saying in the talk that, you know, I don't even go there because I believe that he will see me. And now the intention he's saying is just respect. There's nothing wrong with saying, look, I have to, if we go to Medina, we have to behave in an appropriate manner. He's saying something good, but of course, my ears are like, okay, that is his belief. Of course, I can blind that out, you know, but the intention is beautiful.
Yeah. And I feel, so here's where I'm at with this. You see, I don't like, maybe this is more an age thing, and something that maybe if, let's say, I was to respond to this very thing a few years ago, I would respond very differently. That it's like I see these statements or these interactions, these dynamics, I understand them slightly differently. Like, I recognize that I get it. Like, you see, when people have this thing, many of them, I don't know, I can't say, maybe some people, you know, people say, oh my God, they're committing shirk by doing this, or they're doing that, or they, maybe some people are like that and are thinking this is like a god or something. But I think many, if not most people, this is really just a devotional interaction that they have, a dynamic
wasila kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, and it's also, you see, it's also something which it's like alive. Yeah, but what I mean is it's alive in their minds. It's not, you see, it's like they apply.
You don't think they actually believe it?
No, they do, but it's I think it's different. It's like they do believe it, but like an interaction. Like they believe it in a way that you see, it's a bit like saying, this is what I think. It's a bit like saying how people today, I guess, because let's say how social media has made things all like we could we understand things in a way. Oh well, all these, you know, I'm interacting with all these people. Here they are, they're on this now, okay, this is slightly different because, okay, we may be interacting with them. Let's say that we actually may be, because there's technology involved and it's doing things, but there's a whole world by which we accept. So let me give this example instead. The way we were speaking about this, we had a guest the other day, and he was explaining to us about artificial intelligence, and he was explaining how it is already running right now. And artificial intelligence, how scary it is when you think about it. And he gave the example, like a group of us had met together. So there was about, let's say, 6 of us. Now he said, well, we've come from different places. Somebody had come from London, somebody had come from Cardiff, and somebody had come from the Midlands, and I was from the Midlands. And now he was saying, look, well, right now, to give you an example, he said, okay, people say, well, your phone's kind of spying on you and stuff, and that's something else. He said the fact that we are right now in this place, our phones have communicated. Like they would have picked up, we're in close proximity and we've been here for a while. The AI would recognize that a person is stationary and they are meeting, they are with each other in this. It's not just a passing thing. And it would recognize certain things. Like, let's say now you are because you're here, you, let's say, have a particular shampoo at home, or you have a particular deodorant, or you have a particular thing, the AI would know that about you. Now, because of that, the way AI would interact with each other, that my phone would start giving me adverts as I walk away about your stuff, because it's had a communication whilst we've sat there, because it's recognized these people are not only in proximity, they are here. And it seems that they are obviously friends or communicating. Maybe it's recognized through social media. We're connected.
Crazy.
Now,
Crazy.
you see, when I say these things, the reason I'm saying this, when I say this now, it's like, okay, because we have a narrative that this stuff in our mind, it's kind of like a live hypothesis. It works. But let's say we're trying to explain this to someone who doesn't have a narrative like that in their mind. It just wouldn't make, because in their it's not a live hypothesis for them, it's a dead hypothesis. If they weren't familiar with this kind of stuff, or they lived in a part of the world where they didn't have, this wasn't normalized, this AI and technology. And so now, even if this was wrong, what I'm saying, let's say it turns out this is wrong. Now, when I say it to you, or when he was explaining it to me, I accept it. Why do I accept it? Because we have this kind of framework, this kind of hypothesis within our mind, this structure, psychosocial structure that allows for it. So these people, they have a devotional psychosocial structure that it's like, well, people are alive. So let's say you remove the devotional aspect. Let's say you live with a friend or with a partner or husband, wife, whatever. Now they're not there. Let's say they're not there. You're at home on your own. Let's say they've gone abroad or they've gone somewhere else and they're not going to be here for a few weeks. Some people sometimes may kind of talk or think or act as though the other person is still there. But now that's a psychosocial. They may even address them. Like they may even say, like, let's say here's a photo. They may even say, you know what, you've got no idea what. And in that moment, they don't consider. They actually feel that the person can hear them.
But Mufti Sab, I would slightly disagree. But the thing is, Mufti Sab, like with respect, of course.
No, of course. No. That's a good thing. I'd want you to.
Yeah, I slightly disagree because the thing is, we agree on so many things that is, alhamdulillah, refreshing.
No, I'd like you to disagree if you're going to.
What I would like to disagree. Look, the thing is, Mufti Sab, what you're saying is absolutely right. Now the thing is, when we take what you say for normal things in worldly,
but normal according to who?
No, it is. I mean, it's okay for worldly matters, but when
how do you draw that line? How do you draw that line?
No, but when you say that about things with religion, like from Islamic perspectives, and say that's also okay for them because they might interact with them and the thing. What happens is, I'm still with you.
No, I get it. But I'm just saying.
It opens a door, and that door leads to shirk, and you know that. You know
right,
that reason we don't have
right. So, but
you don't have pictures. We don't have pictures.
Yeah, but
you know how even the Quran explains how shirk starts.
But okay, so
it starts with that, and it ends with shirk.
Right. So, okay. But, right. It's not, right. Okay. So it's not about whether this is the proper medium or improper medium. So people would, you see, because from a, proper medium, you would have, let's say, religion proper. Now, religion proper would teach you that, okay, this is how it works. It works that you ask God. And this is the
But
whole personal versus transcendent God kind of dilemma. Now, okay, that's fine. Nobody's denying that. You know, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين.
the
Even
biggest
these people, no, but even
example
these
are the
people,
Christians.
no,
The
but
biggest
even these
example.
people don't deny that.
You know, even the Christians are the biggest example. Like they didn't have a statue of Jesus a few hundreds of years, and then after that, some people tried to have it, and a lot of priests removed it because they said people are going to start,
No,
going into
because
shirk after that, and it
no,
happened.
because in Christianity it's different. Because in Christianity, very shortly after, the whole Godhead philosophy is there, that they believed in the kind of three Godheads, but they disagree in how much power is given to
How
each
much
one.
power exactly? But even with the whole thing, I think
But
it was
they agree in the Godheads.
yeah, but
Now,
even there was a lot of ikhtilaf. I remember reading that as well from
yeah.
some priests,
And
and
then it stabilizes on they
yeah,
give them equal. They kind of recognize it as in their
exactly.
way of
And then
they
of
are.
course the face and the body in every church to have a Jesus. It wasn't a unanimous decision. A lot of
Sure, I
people
mean there was
did that
iconoclastic
because
movements
they
that
were
took it out,
focused
but
on
I
Jesus,
think,
not on God.
but
You know.
it's regardless of the statues are irrelevant, because if you believe Jesus is God himself, regardless of whether you have a statue of him or
Yeah,
not,
but
and
a
you
statue does support that. Same as Buddha. Like you can't find something telling Buddha that he is, he's God. But then again, having a statue of Buddha,
Mhm.
of course, glorifies it. And that's, I believe, the reason we
sure
don't have a
when
picture of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam,
yeah,
also because you people would have started going there and
I
looking at him, and it would have been easier. And the
to
Quran,
worship the prophet.
yeah, of course,
I don't
you have
believe any. Do you believe that any of these? Do you believe any of these people that, let's say, go to shrines? I'm not saying, look, this is not religion proper. That said, I struggle to believe that most people who do that worship those people. They don't work
but
like they
again,
believe. Like if you're to ask them, they would say we only worship God.
okay, I get okay.
They
I'm
would,
with
yeah.
you, but then again, we go to the point back again. With respect, I have to disagree in that
No.
because what was shirk at the time of Lat, Manat, Uzza? They had Allah also, and they didn't say everyone is equal. A lot of people said, okay, there is this one God which is above everyone, same as the Hindus. For them, Ishwar is above everyone else, in the mythology. But again,
Sure.
having a lot of gods, even if they are under gods, or saying an intercession, the Prophet ﷺ
But
made.
would you believe that they? So would you believe that? I get what you're saying, and I agree with that principle. Would you feel that these people think these saints are like they not just behave as though, but they actually believe they are demigods?
I believe that what happens is once they actually start believing, and it
But
starts.
this is a bit of
Argument.
an imposition here, because
No,
you're
no, as soon as you say they are alive, that means you can talk to them. As soon as you
but
say
what's
you can talk to them,
yeah.
okay. As soon as you say you can talk to them, okay, nothing. All right, I'm okay
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But
No, I'm just saying, yeah, yeah.
as soon as you say you can talk to them, I believe then it goes into having a conversation. As soon as it goes into conversation, it goes into they can hear me and help me. As soon as it go into help me, it is as if, for
So
example,
okay, let's wind this back.
just end my point.
Sure,
Say
sure,
I go
sure.
to Mufti Saab, a saint. So I took Mufti Abu Layth Saab, yeah. So
Okay.
if I go to him and say, please do dua for me, I'll
Mhm.
say that to you.
Sure.
Sheikh, please do dua for me. You're like, okay, inshallah, I'll do dua for you. Who do you go to and say, please do dua for me? If you go to a wise and saintly person or alim, or you go to them and say, please do dua for me, please pray for me. Because you believe they pray for you and inshallah Allah will accept the dua.
But even
If
if you said
you tell
help me, let's
someone
say
who
you
says,
said help me, you're using
yeah,
those
even if
words.
you
Yeah.
say help me
Mhm.
and you start relying on them telling you to help you with God. Now that's an intercession. That's just wasila. That's wasila. And there are a lot of ikhtilafat, you know, about the whole
but
wasila.
look, I'm not speaking. But let's go. Let's wind back to those steps that you said. Right now, look. In reality, you said now you speak to someone. Now, how do you differentiate that from the photograph example?
Like for example,
is that a person? You'd be surprised how many people behave, and they're totally normal people in that way, that they interact with inanimate, let's say, representations of people. So whether they speak to a photo, they speak to
religion. That is worldly matters.
No,
there is a line between religion.
How is there a line between religion?
As soon as you go into religion, you mean that it has got something to do with your spirituality.
So wait a minute. So is it so these people that do this, let's say, are they like are they delusional people?
No. It's not about delusion. It's about them actually believing. Okay,
but in the moment when they do it, do they think in the moment when they do it, doing that interaction, they drift into a dynamic where they do believe in the moment, even though out of that moment they don't believe it. So in the moment they believe it, like they actually think they're talking to the photo. The moment they step out of that moment, the next moment, they recognize, oh, but that's just a photograph.
Exactly.
But in the moment, they actually do it.
But
people talk to themselves, for example, when they're talking to themselves.
When the people go to these shrines and ask them for help, they actually, them believing that someone who is dead can resolve the problem, give their daughter a baby, can make the problems away.
So is it? But you say dead. What's dead got to do with it? Like, because if they were alive, what difference would it make?
It does, because at the end of the day, if for me, it's like
because let's say you're talking to a photograph and the person is alive. What difference does it make if he's dead?
What was the ayah again? وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنْ يَدْعُو مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ مَنْ لَا يَسْتَجِيبُ لَهُ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ وَهُمْ عَنْ دُعَائِهِمْ غَافِلُونَ.
But being accurate, those verses are speaking about idols and deities.
Of course.
So it's not. So I'm just saying there's a bit of a leap here that you're taking verses that are speaking about deities and people who worship. They actually worship them and they call them a god. To, let's say, somebody you speak into a photograph and he says,
but I think when you go to the photo, you shift from the shrine, because the shrine is a religious shrine. The photo
what makes it? You see, but if you can do that in your mind and consider it normal, what makes you think that the boundaries are so clear in where you, how do you set rules of where you can and cannot do this action?
No, because Mufti Sahab, as soon as you make because the whole I'm not drawing the line. The line is because as soon as it goes into the,
let's say somebody can somebody, let's say somebody's sitting in their car and they're talking to their car. This is very normal, yeah. Okay. Like people will say, let's say let's say 1 second. Let's say a person's let's say the person says to his car, the car's almost stalling. He says, "Come on, you got to do this. Come on, don't let me down now. Don't let me down now." He's talking to the car.
But he doesn't actually believe.
But in that moment, is he lying? Is he lying? What is it?
He doesn't actually believe.
He's talking to the car. He does believe he's talking to the car. He knows he's talking to the car.
No, you're getting my point. He doesn't believe that the car has the power or the ability to actually help him in a supernatural way.
No, you got to stop it there, because we got to answer that. When he says that to the car, explain that action.
No,
what is he doing? What is it? Is he lying? Is he in a state of insanity? Is he in a state of what is this person doing?
He has for me, in that perspective,
does he think he's lying to himself when what is he doing? What is he doing?
Every sane person knows that the car can't talk. So of course he knows.
But in that moment, is he tricking himself?
Like, come on, he just wants the car to go on.
But he's talking to the car.
Yeah, of course he is. But it has got.
And he's telling the car to help him. He's saying, "Come on, you got to start. You got to start."
But But again, you always leave my butt alone. Like, no, okay.
I do that from choice. That's never been of an appeal to me.
No, but you know, but the reason I'm saying, I'm just tackling the point that no person believes that the car has the ability or supernatural ability to actually help him. But people who go to shrines,
but you can't stop there. You have to explain that, look, because if the reason I'm saying you have to explain, because if this is perfectly normal, you're saying that a person in that moment has a dynamic interaction with an object that is inanimate. Essentially, it has a motor, but it can't.
You're trying to
but
say
in that moment, they
goes to a shrine.
They occupy the world.
Who's dead.
Yes, because look, in essence, what you're doing is you're saying in this moment, this this interaction is okay, even though we all know that, look, it doesn't work that way. But you say it's okay because this person, in their mind, they occupy a world in that moment in which it's okay to do that.
So you think if a guy,
and there's no contradiction,
says, so a guy goes to, just to be specific, a guy goes to a shrine and says,
but people don't say that, though. People don't say that. Let's be real.
What people say, Musab, you'll be surprised.
No, but they don't. Okay, so look, people do ask for things, but do they? Okay, so right. Okay, if a person went and said, "I want you to forgive my sins," this is what you're saying.
Exactly. Just tell me.
They say that as in, "I want you to forgive my sins."
Exactly.
No, they don't normally. Okay, I've not come across this ever. Okay, let's say he says that. Okay, let's say he even says that. What? Okay, what is the understanding as? Is
you
he?
Feel it's okay?
No, so right. Okay, so look, there's two things here. There's two things here.
Yeah.
One is this religion proper? This is not religion proper in the sense that this is not how the religion is taught generally through its teachings. This is not religion proper.
Okay,
however, this now may be a reality. I say a reality. This may be a kind of psychosocial realized hypothesis for certain people. Now, in that hypothesis, in that moment, just as you said, you know that the car can't do anything, but in that moment, despite knowing that, you say certain things which are absolutely contradictory, but they're okay to say it. So now, how can you hold that dysmorphia? How can you hold that there in the real world under crises and stress? And say, well, these people who mostly are not educated people need to draw the fact that let's say we critically chastise them because they fail to draw the line when it comes to, let's say now, sacred issues. Okay, but these people, I don't think it's easy for them to draw lines. I'm not saying this is religion proper. This is not religion proper. This is not how. But I struggle to accept that it's shirk. It's not shirk in my understanding. Sure, it is ignorance.
If you believe, like for me, Mufti, there I have to say that if someone says to another person and believes that he can forgive his sins, although we know the only one.
Yeah, okay, that's sure.
It goes against the whole perspective.
I've not heard that one, to be honest, but okay, we can use that as an extreme example. I normally hear that they ask for things, so they'll say, like,
the thing is,
help me get this.
To sum this topic up, it's just I believe we both are in some things on the same page. The only difference is that I am maybe saying I wouldn't open that door too much.
No, it's not about opening it, because look, people, it's not about opening it, because people are already doing these things. They're not doing them because some people are saying you can do them or some people are saying you can't do them. They're doing them anyway. So the question is, you see, this is where I'm saying that what I've started to understand is the complexity of the issue with age. Like I've started to see, okay, like maybe 5 years ago I would have replied just like you, or but I see now that, wait a minute, how can we, in several things, consider it normal and acceptable to behave in a way that is totally insane? Like it's totally insane by our logical standards. Like I gave the example of talking to inanimate objects. It makes zero sense. We would be categorized as like mentally insane if we were to be audited on that. But
No, I'm
we
100%.
but we normalize it, and we wouldn't bat an eyelid. Like if you, even though we ourselves know in another moment, let's say by default, like we have this understanding that these things can't do this for me, but all of a sudden my phone is freezing. I'm like, come on, god damn it, you load, what's wrong with you? Now I'm speaking to my phone as in a way, and I'm interacting meaningfully as though this is in that moment gonna work. Now we would excuse that as, well, that's just human behavior to interact irrationally with a certain expression, because that's our manifestation of the emotion given that moment. Then we have to extend some compassion in understanding that when people go to, let's say, sacred sites, which are moments of emotion, and they express things, that it's not religion proper. This is not the teaching of Islam to say, well, you should go to this. It's not the teachings. And that the teaching, you're right, is to say, look, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. But when people do it, just to have an understanding, right, okay, I see what they're doing. I don't think they're worshipping, let's say, Data Darbar, as in you are a god, like La ilaha except
Yeah, of
Allah
course.
and you.
No one is
No,
saying
exactly. They don't believe
of
that
course,
Data Darbar and God were existing at the beginning of creation, and they don't believe that. And
but it's like for me, giving him powers of, like, doing that and this and that is the only thing. Otherwise, I'm with you. Like, again, I listen to Dr. Suleiman Misbah every single day, and I'm joyful.
oh, this is just an interesting conversation. This is why I thought, look, it's really good to just unpack this. It's not about, obviously it's good that we can disagree and kind of explain, because in the disagreement we're seeing sides to it.
Yeah, of course. Because at the
This
end of
is,
the
I
day,
think we all agree that, look, this is not, I'm using the word religion proper. This is not the way, this is not the teachings of, as highlighted in the faith. They don't say, hey, by the way, when you go past a grave, start doing this. No, nobody says that.
It's like the whole conversation.
This is rurality, rural mindsets. Just
like
behave
the whole
this way.
Conversation about karamat. Do Mufti Saab and me believe that someone can just do supernatural things? We don't. But if someone like Dr. Suleiman Misbahi gives these stories, I see the benefit that people have.
Right. So here's where I'm at with those stories. Like Sheikh Maulana Misbahi Saab gives these stories of saints, and they do all these, let's say, amazing miracles. And I see I see incredibly valuable the story, and I love the stories when he tells them. And I feel that, you see, I engage and interact with those stories as one would with I guess maybe with art, or with, they evoke emotion. It's not, to me, it's not about history data. It's not like I'm sitting there like a reporter saying,
I have to stop you there. But do you believe that everyone who's not an highly intelligent person like you or something on that stage of knowledge,
you're flattering me like with these words, and
no, but let's so yeah, but do you believe that everyone who has not maybe the level of knowledge as you, who can say this is not history data, because the guy who's telling them the story is presenting it as a true story? Now, that's where I sometimes, but again, with Dr. Suleiman Misbah, my heart just melts. So I never, but I do believe, if people believe this is a historical fact, sometimes.
You see, because I think, okay, so here's where I'm at. I think that one of the greatest skills that us as a human species have is the skill to tell a story.
That's beautiful.
This is true, isn't it? And this is what Yuval Harari's whole book is kind of
Yeah, about
themed
those
on,
monkeys
sapiens.
and the
And
monkeys and the humans on in
if
both.
the in the experiment, if you're on
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
a, but his whole book Sapiens kind of rests on this theme that our skill, our superpowers,
power
one of the
stories.
keys is the power to be able to tell a story.
It's
Now,
beautiful.
because we can put messages in there, we can put emotions in there, we can put morals in there, we can fit it with values, we can do we could tell our legacy in there. Now, you see, when people tell these stories, this is why, to be fair, I prefer that the stories, this is me now, I prefer that these stories are about saints, let's say, because they're going to be magical or they're going to have like extra miracles in there, as opposed to being about prophets, because I feel that it's right. Okay, so people, you see, when you start telling people so much about prophets and let's say these stories, and you've read it in some random book and you've read it here, and then people may take it as data. Whereas, let's say it's about and the name of some sheikh, which people don't really, most people in the audience probably won't even remember the sheikh's name. They just have this story of, let's say, like there's a story that, let's say, Sheikh Suleiman Misbahi Saab gives the example of Abul Hassan al-Khirqani. Now, most people would never have, they probably never heard of him, but he gives this story of this saint and this, something miraculous. So now what it does is the listener, who most of whom are there for that sacred experience, the holy experience, they have these emotions. It evokes this this kind of like, whoa, okay, like, wow, and they want to be a better person, a bit like somebody looking at art and they're getting all emotional, they're getting all kind of, they have these. So I agree with you. The problem can be when people, it's not about the skill or the power of being able to tell a story. It starts becoming like reporting. Like I'm reporting an event and you're recording data. So this is, so it becomes a way, it's like you've gone away from art into a textbook for an exam. Like I'm learning math so I can sit an exam. Now this here, you're right, because then you learn all these things, and in the real world it doesn't happen like that. And so,
Exactly, and you actually believe that, and that's when it happens that
and then you might feel that, why doesn't God do this for me? And you
exactly,
might actually be
but then you
heartbroken.
have, if once you believe, and that is my problem with these whole things. Once you believe actually that this is historical data, you start believing in facts, and when you think that is a fact, you actually start believe that
But
there are humans who have these kind of powers. Once you start believing that, you believe in, people come to you and they say, you need this and this. I'll write you a taviz and this will go away. I'll write you this and I'll just give me 200 pounds. And,
yeah.
that COVID taviz that came
Oh,
out.
right.
Well, I
But
remember I remember you said like, by why 19 pence? Like,
I and but I do feel that we as humans can engage in what appears to be contradictory elements in an equation. So for example, we can sit and watch a movie, right? Now, there's a side of us before going in that knows this is a movie. It's been
yeah,
enacted. There's a rational side, knows, camera crew got together, directors, producers, and I'm sitting here watching this movie. But in the movie, I could, for example, a person could get scared if it's horror. They could go, oh, watch out. A person, we could cry. Let's say we could laugh. We kind of live it. But then when the movie finishes, we we take the experience, the human experience, we harness it, we empower ourselves with it, but we don't consider it. At the same time, we don't walk away and think, well, it was a documentary.
yeah,
We know that, oh, but it was a movie. And I think that is the kind of fine line, the sweet spot between, you hear these wonderful kind of empowering stories in a way that they are very, they inspire from the sense that they put a spirit into you, that you feel, whoa, okay, somebody, he did this. And like he gives this story where, I mean, this is just one example. Let's say that, um, I, I can't remember which sheikh it was, whether it was Baba Fariduddin, or it was, but he,
Ganguly.
no, no. The was it Ganja Shakkar, or was it? But it was one of them. But he gives the story of where he's going and he's, he's really thirsty and he denies himself water. Says, "I'm not going to give myself water. It doesn't matter. I'll do what I have to do." But then he gets to a point where he can't take it. He gets to a well eventually, and there's no, the water's too low, and he doesn't have apparatus to kind of lift it. So he just sits there, and then whilst he's sitting there, like a deer comes or some animal, and as they come, the water rises, and so this person is watching that, and then he thinks, okay, so he goes to it, and the water sinks, and he thinks, right, what's this? But when the animal goes, it kind of comes up, and then he kind of says to God that, what's this? Like, am I worse than these animals, or what's going on? And Allah tells him that, you see, the animals came there on my tawakkul, that I will raise the water. You went there thinking the water itself will raise. This like, you see, the issue was about belief. Like, they had iman in.
It's a beautiful story.
It's a beautiful. It's like, so, and when he says it, for example, with his words and his charisma, it brings you to tears. Like, you think, wow, and you go away thinking, what? I should have more trust in God.
Yeah, Ghamdi Sahib said something really nice about it. He said about karamat, he said, the thing is, if you're talking about supernatural stuff, karamat and stuff, and he said about some awliya Allah, shuyukh and godly people doing supernatural stuff, he's like, you can say that, we'll listen to you, but you have to accept that I could show you Buddhist or Hindu kind of saints who will tell even double and triple of those karamat and claim they can do that, or their elders can do that. And then you'll have to accept that as well. And then he said, but we'll listen to you. But once you go, and that's what I liked about his approach, he said, once you go into religion, once you make this religion, once you say it's from God and Allah and the Quran, and once you go into that, फिर हम postmortem कर देंगे. He said, then we'll execute you. Then we'll actually see, okay, it's not factual, what are you saying, So I like that approach. But what I really, really find funny is when it's so stupid. When Deobandis say, our big people, our Akabirin, our saints can do that, but the Barelvi guys, they're just chatting. How can that even be? But when the Barelvis say, yeah, that's just double face. Well, how can you say that? How can you say it's? I remember they used to tell us when people say la ilaha illallah illallah, they used to say that's wrong. But then again, when they used to have jalsa of Bukhari, they used to say, let's do dhikr la ilaha illallah illallah. And I'm like, how can you say? Or our Buzurg saw the Prophet in his dream. And then they say Dr. Tahirul Qadri is lying that he saw him in his dream. That can't be.
You see, you see, one of the things that with all this, right? One of the things that I am coming more and more to appreciate is that, you see, the wonderful thing about Islam, this is an amazing thing, that with all these, it's representations, or I don't know, if multifaceted approaches, let's say, its attitudes, its personalities, if you want to see it in that way, that it's how it harmonizes with people, that for different people it is there to gel. Like, these dynamics that are so different are for each for its own. Like, you will get, like in Arabic they say likulli maqamin maqal, that you will get people who, for example, need a very rational kind of approach to Islam, and that is there for them. And you will need some people, for example, that may want just a practical, and that is there. And maybe some people are very devotional, and that is there. And maybe for some people are very mystical, and that is there. And maybe there's some people who need rigidity in life. Like, they need you get some people, they're very there's a lot of OCD, scrupulosity, and they, not that that's healthy, but some people are like that. They have, I need so much structure, like I need rules all the time, it's almost like they are slightly on a spectrum. Let's say they have that. I need a lot of do's and don'ts, and I need this, and that's there for people that want that, and there's people who feel that no, I don't. This there should be a lot more spirit, a lot more, and that's there. So
No, but
people,
that's what I came to appreciate with this.
yeah,
Like right now, I came to appreciate at this stage right now of my knowledge, like Sufism and stuff is something which really I do have a different perspective now on it.
yeah.
It's very
I've
uh,
seriously, I so
someone
have.
like Rumi. Someone like Rumi. It's
Yeah, like I've so started to appreciate the mystics, for example,
even
of
like
Islam.
what is it called? Muhyiddin
Ibn Arabi, Ibn
Ibn
Arabi.
Arabi.
And you have,
He's one of those guys who is misunderstood extremely as well. Like there's some figures I always say in Islamic history. You don't have a middle path. People either hate them and call them kafir, or they say they're non plus ultra. And
mm,
people are like, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah. There's one fraction which disses him. Or Abu
entirely.
Hanifa, maybe Abu Hanifa also, on some extent, some
Mm.
people dismiss him, some people
I would
call him.
say, yeah, I would say now, in later times, Imam Abu Hanifa, for centuries now,
Yeah,
he's generally kind of dignified, he's revered, he's very
yeah,
kind of respect. Maybe in very early times,
yeah, he
or
was.
just
But
after
like
him,
people, yeah, but
yeah.
people like especially Ibn Taymiyyah and Muhyiddin ibn Arabi,
Oh yeah,
they
yeah,
were people that both sides, they just, one says Shaykh al-Akbar and one says he's a kafir, na'udhu billah,
yeah.
yeah. So I came to,
I mean, Ibn Taymiyyah himself is condemning,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah. But then again, Ibn Taymiyyah did a lot of
yeah.
takfir.
That's
No, so but then again, there are some people who
but
say
but
Ibn
this thing
Taymiyyah.
of flavors for everyone,
Yeah, it is. It
it's
is something
so
really.
colorful, and I feel that you see because they
That's
may
what I
be,
love about Imam Malik, by the way, that
yeah,
everyone, there's no one who actually dares to like. Of course, there was this ikhtilaf with Layth ibn, what is it called? But he is very respected,
Layth
unanimously.
ibn Sa'ad, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But Imam Malik is very respected unanimously
Of
at all.
course, of course. I mean, he's
Although he had these views, but then they
yeah.
didn't dare to,
Yeah, there was this because
yeah.
of his, his whole Amir al-Mu'minina fil Hadith, and then also his maqam of Medina. It was really
Have you noticed that they do? A lot of people don't call him Amir al-Mu'minin fil Hadith.
Imam Malik.
Yeah. Now, have you
Yeah.
noticed that they tend to give that thing more to Imam Bukhari, like after the time passed, like in the day and age. But he was always more known for
No,
like
because he's in. You see, so he's in that a different era
of
of.
course it is.
So obviously, Imam Bukhari is in the era
200 years after the
of Tadween, and
yeah, yeah,
when books are being manifold, they're being written, and all this. But really, so obviously, I mean, I'm sure they could say obviously Imam Bukhari as Amir al-Mu'minin, but he's not from the. See, Imam Bukhari is from the people who are documenting hadith and
yeah.
reporting them, but he's not a key uh, player within the data.
No, he's not. No,
He's
no,
a person who gathers the data, memorizes it, and and documents it and passes, and the book can be passed on. Imam Malik is from the era where these are the
yeah,
core players of hadith,
yeah, the folklore,
so
yeah.
the kind of the participants of hadith. So in his age, really, some of Amir al-Mu'mineen, you will get Imam Malik, you will get
Sure, but
Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj.
he did have inclination towards the Shiism, right?
I've not,
Bit,
right, okay. I've not never.
wasn't it?
I don't think I've heard that. He
Oh,
was Shu'bah was really, he was so strict about Abu Bistam Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj. He's really strict on this whole tadlis thing, and he was so the famous muhaddith Mis'ar ibn Kidam. He's one of the rawis, one of the participants in the actual hadith data itself. So it's really interesting actually, because he gets Shu'bah as a young lad becomes in a positive way fixated with him, trying to learn from him, and he's so keen, and he's following him around, and he attends all his classes. And Shu'bah is at that stage his father's passed away, so he's just a single child with his mom. So Mis'ar marries his mom, and so he marries his mom and kind of adopts him. And Mis'ar seems to be quite wealthy, and so this obviously changes the whole
Yeah.
the landscape for Shu'bah. And Shu'bah really gets into hadith, and he's so harsh that he said about tadlis that he would consider it haram, that he has the
Yeah, he
statements
was
like
very strict about
he
it.
would say things like if that zina is more acceptable than tadlis, he would say that, as in he would say, yeah, like he said, لأن أزني خير من or
And
لأن
if you
تزني
think
خير
about it,
من أن
a lot of
تدلس.
muhaddithin don't care about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's
A
shocking.
lot of
The
muhaddithin.
attitudes are so surprising, ain't they? They're like, whoa, they're worlds apart. You've got like Shu'bah on one end, who's like, this is haram, this is much. It's it's easier for, or it's better for a person that they're committing zina than they're committing tadlis, and it's like, whoa, okay. And he would say all these kind of things like that. He would say like these really out there statements condemning tadlis.
On the topic of hadith, there's one question that I had. I wanted to know your view on this, because as we said, both of us, we changed our views with time and this and that, be more forgiving and more broad-minded in that sense. But what I would like to know from you is, you know, say a book like an extremely popular book like Fadail A'mal,
Okay.
which is a book which is for the people who don't know, that is a book which is used by the Tablighi Jamaat, which is one of the largest, probably working around Jamaats in the world right now. Like there's every country that there is a Tablighi Jamaat. Even I remember in Germany we had some Tablighi Jamaats from Saudi, like Arabs from Saudi coming as a Tablighi Jamaat here. Like,
Wow. Okay.
yeah, from Medina, I was like, what? So they're everywhere. So they have this book called
Yeah.
Fadail Amal, of course, and
Yeah,
in
of course,
Fadail
of course.
Amal, there are a lot
Yeah.
of
Weak
there's a
hadith
lot
and stuff.
of weak
Yeah.
hadith and stuff. So what happens is now, of course, the author Sheikh Zakaria Kandalwi,
Yeah.
rahmatullahi alayh, now he was the Sheikh al-Hadith in Saharanpur, in Mazahir al-Ulum. And he is, of course, he taught Bukhari his whole life. So he himself, of course, knew a lot of Sahih Hadith.
Yeah, but Bukhari isn't a. You see, Sahih Bukhari isn't going to be
What I want to
a.
get
Yeah.
to, what I want to get to is now he writes this book or compiles this book, whatever. Did you know, by the way, I think it was in the Muqaddama of Fadail Amal or Tabligh Nisab, he wrote himself कि मेरी दिमागी हालत is not 100%. He said that
Something
in the
like
Muqaddama. I
this.
wrote that, yeah, something like that. So what I'm asking is, do you see a benefit of
Of weak hadith.
like, because
Sure.
now I'm thinking about it again.
I do, in the sense of you know how I mentioned in the devotional kind of aspect that it comes back to the same thing. Like it's that same phenomenon. I feel these things, if they can serve the role as
And it's okay.
as akin to art in its expression, then I would say that's, to me, that's more about the sacred. And the sacred is ineffable, so it's not something which can be put into words. And really, I do agree that the holy and the sacred is at the heart of religion. Religion is really not built on something right. I mean, it may be nested in reason, but it's not about reason. So religion is really about the sacred, isn't it? So religion is like, if somebody used to ask you, what is religion about? Like, obviously, you're going to say, well, it's about people worshipping, but that's it. Like, what is that? It's, if you're to reduce it, you keep reducing it, you would reduce it to, it is about the sacred. Now, you could say, well, what is sacred? Oh, God, or worship, and this. And so it's about the holy. And what is holy? God is holy. and you worship God. And so ultimately, religion is about the holy or the sacred or however you want to express it. Now, in that sense, certain things, if they help in a certain way, sure. The problem is if it switches from that to a kind of data imperative where people become all okay, this is now reporting and it's now a textbook. It's not art, it's a textbook which must be learnt for and of itself. That becomes a problem, and then it becomes, if it's being taught as dogma, that's another problem you throw in there. And yeah, so really, I mean, the discussion, um certain people like Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi, for example, is
Big
of the
motivation.
understanding that, as was, I believe, Imam Bukhari as well, as was, I think, there were a few muhaddithin, I think Ibn Sayyid al-Nas and a few people that were of the understanding that al-ahadith al-da'ifa, a weak ahadith, cannot be, um, that weak hadith cannot be used in any category of
Yeah.
Islam. So they were really harsh about this. Yeah, really harsh. So, but with time, and there was a point where I cited that and I firmly accepted it and I used to express it, and I believed in it passionately. But I think with age, you come to realize, right, okay, it's, I think, much more complex than that. That's a very simplistic way of
Would
looking
you
at
agree
things.
with my argument if I would say it is okay to do it for virtue of a good thing, for fadail, but it's not right to give it as a dalil in a discussion, in a pivotal kind of discussion?
That who's that? The
The,
the
yeah, the way
weak hadith, the weak hadith. In
exactly.
in a
It's
discussion
okay to
for
do
to
it
make
for virtue, to
ahkam, to make
motivate.
rules.
No, no, yeah, it's okay to give it as a motivation,
Mhm.
virtue of something good, which is proven like salah or which is proven like sadaqat, and it's okay to do that because there is no harm, of course, in it.
Yeah.
Only motivation, but to do it to bring it in an argument and give it as a substantial kind of hadith, and that would be wrong. That is my assumption. What do you is that okay with you? Or like, would you say that is
Right,
okay?
that's yeah, that's interesting because I feel that, you see, I'm not so sure. Um I I feel that,
हाँ मैं हाँ मिला दूं मुफ्ती साहब.
yeah, because it's, you see, because if a person mentions a weak hadith as a point of argument, well, you could always immediately respond with, well, that's a weak hadith.
Of course. Yeah.
So it it's it carries within it that function that you could respond with that. It's not,
Yeah,
a
right.
person could say, well, this hadith is weak. The only thing is that sometimes some weak hadith can be interesting to develop arguments, like maybe greater arguments, or maybe a
Like
person is
for
trying.
example, they say about Shabi Barat, the night of thing.
Okay,
They,
yeah, that.
they say the argument has always been, that they say there is no Sahih hadith, but there are like 17 or 20 weak hadith, and that makes, I think Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahib wrote that in his book, that he wrote, because there's so many weak hadith, I can at least say that there is a fazilat, but I can't
Okay,
specify.
I wasn't meaning that when I was saying it, but I see what you're saying. I meant it
You mean
more.
that?
No, I didn't mean that personally, like that example. I meant, you see, to me, that is just a devotional thing that people are doing, which they're going to do anyway. So it goes back to that other discussion
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we were
yeah.
having before. To me, I mean more like, let's say, like for greater things, like, huh.
It's
Like I'm trying
extremely
to think of I'm
right
trying to
now.
think of some examples. Like, let's say um like you're trying to establish a greater point for something. You're trying to state, trying to think of certain examples where this could happen. So let's say you're trying to show that the maqasid of Islam, the objectives of Islam. Now, what you show is that, well, according in a line with the maqasid of Islam, the hudud are also kind of parameterized by their day and age, and therefore, as the day and age changes, the hudud change. This is, let's say, the iqtida, the demand of the maqasid of the Sharia. So this is the claim being made, let's say. Now, so this obviously several Malikis have done, and this is why Abu al-Qasim al-Burzuli and all these people in the 7th century and 8th century said that the Sharia dictates that the hudud change, and they changed them into other kind of financial stuff and penalties and things. Now, let's say to establish to establish this, they are then leaning in on multiple. Now, maqasid is already established through it's induced by multiple readings of the sources. Maqasid, that the objectives of the Sharia are maslaha. But okay, but now you want to also demonstrate where certain punishments are being averted, let's say, or in the name of maslaha, or that, forget that they're being averted, but that there is some leeway with sanctions as well. It's not categorical. So let's say there is now a hadith there's a hadith in Bukhari, but it has a greater explanation of the hadith in another book. But Ibn Hajar mentions it in Fath al-Bari. So you have the hadith in Bukhari. It mentions that a person came to the Prophet and he said that, look, I've sinned. And the Prophet said, well, have you prayed your salah? And he says, yes. So he says, well, the salah is a forgiveness for the prayer. The salah is a forgiveness for the sin. Now, so the person says, oh, okay. Now, sorry, the person doesn't say, okay, so this is but in a greater explanation of this hadith, as Ibn Hajar will mention in Fath al-Bari, and you'll get other riwayat that may not have the same validity as the riwayat in Bukhari, but they are they more expansive, they elaborate. So they mention that the person comes and he says to the Prophet that I've committed zina. Yeah. And the Prophet says, have you prayed? Yeah. And he says, yes. And he says, well, the prayer, it expiates sins, forgives sins. So now, now let's say you take another hadith. So, okay, you've got that one. Now you take another example, which is in the Musnad of Ahmad, that some people were trying to establish the had on Ma'iz al-Aslami. So for the had of zina or of adultery, sorry. And so they're trying to establish this, and he tries to run away. So they chase after him and they catch him. Now there's a riwayah in the Musnad of Ahmad that says that the Prophet appears to rebuke them and says, why didn't you let him go? He says, هَلَّا تَرَكْتُمُوهُ فَيَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. If you'd let him go, then he would have turned to God and God would have turned to him. Now, you may say, well, okay, but this riwayah, it has some problem in it. But so you take a collective of these things. By the way, that is in the Musnad of Ahmad. It is also one of the riwayat of the Hanbali madhab that at-tawbah tusqitul hudud. The tawbah drops hudud. So now what you're doing is you have a principle, but to instantiate it, you're looking for certain incidents that may show a different manifestation of this principle. And what you're finding sometimes to show may not match the rigor of, let's say, the certain muhaddithin criteria of the isnad. But to you, that's momentarily irrelevant.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Like, if you go by this principle in hadith, now the problem is, if you go by this principle, I do understand it, but for me, the problem comes when someone like me says, okay, the coming of a Mahdi in this day and age, and the way we portray it and tell our children, listen, this is how, you know how it is. And then I ask the question, very simple, okay, is in the Quran, it's something, one of the biggest events of the history of the future, and it's not in the Quran. And then again I ask, is it in Muwatta Imam Malik? And they say no. And then again, is it in Bukhari with that story? It's not. It is in Muslim. There is a Mahdi mentioned, but it's not on that level, you know.
In Sahih Muslim, the Mahdi isn't mentioned.
Well,
It just says, I think in one riwayah it says, wa imamukum minkum. In another riwayah it says, wa ammakum.
Which will come. And then even
some it does say there will be one imam that will come in Sahih Muslim. It says that it's speaking, it says, no, the Mahdi is not in the Sahihain. But it says, wa imamukum minkum. And in the other riwayah, it says, wa ammakum minkum, and he led you in prayer. But and they say it's talking about Jesus. And in the other one, it says, wa imamukum. So it's speaking about Nazal al-Masih, the Nuzul al-Masih. And then, wa ammakum minkum. And he either led you in prayer, or some read it as what, because the alif, whether the alif is there or not, imamukum minkum, and that your imam is from you.
But let's say, as I said, clearly, it's not mentioned in Bukhari, it's not mentioned in Muslim, it's not mentioned
not the Mahdi thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not mentioned in the Muwatta, and it's not mentioned in the Quran. Now,
there is no single Sahih Hadith about the Mahdi.
Of course. Now, when you take, again, there is not a single Sahih Hadith. Now, when they bring a lot of maybe weak Hadith as a, and then back up their story, that's something.
Right. Okay. So that's a good point. You see. So, right. Okay. So there's a difference here.
You understand? If they use your principle, you understand?
No, because there's a difference here. You see, the difference is that on one, but it's a very good question. That is there a double standard here then?
Yeah.
Because on one instant, you're saying, well, okay, we could rely on certain hadith even if they're weak to, let's say, lend credence to a particular issue at hand. On another case, you're saying, well, look, there is no single Sahih Hadith in this matter.
But because especially people like...
just to expand on that.
Exactly, just people like you and me, we don't even leave Bukhari alone and say...
No, it's not that, because this is... better than that. Sticking to this topic, because it's a very good question. Now, there is a primary difference what's happening here. The difference is... here on one hand you're talking about, let's say, an asl from the usul of Sharia, which is established through multiple evidences of the Quran and Sunnah. So the usul of the Sharia, usul al-fiqh, are established, are qat'i generally, according to most usuliyin. Some may say, okay, they're dhanni, but they are, those who believe in them to be qat'i. They are based on several verses of the Quran. So the fact that Islam has come for your maslahah is an agreed upon general understanding amongst Muslims, that Islam has come for your welfare. Now, based on this, right, there is a principle known as masalih mursala and maqasid al-sharia. Sure, not everybody accepts that the Sharia has maqasid, and Islam has come with maqasid, and Islam has come for maslahah. What they disagree on is that they accept that Islam brought a toolbox and set up these things. What they disagree is, did it inherit you the toolbox to continue doing it? This they disagree. Okay, so those who accept it as an usul, now you're talking about them speaking about particular rulings with the change of the day and age. This is about the applied fiqh and applied usul of Islam. This is very different, because wherever you apply it, there will be a disagreement. So let's say you apply analogy, qiyas. Some scholars will say your qiyas was qiyas fasid, qiyas ma'al fariq. You know, even if they accept analogy, they may say this instantiation of qiyas was wrong, was false. So, okay, now, so people will always disagree with your actual, what they call tahqiq al-manat, where you actually apply things. The other instant is not about usul applied or fatawa or fiqh. It's about creed. We're establishing a belief system within Islam. We're establishing it from scratch. So it's not, so we're not talking about what people end up doing. You know, a moment ago we spoke about people going to shrines and people doing things. That's not a belief. That's not a creedal, institutionalized belief system. That's just people acting, rural people that, you know, that behave in certain ways. We're talking about establishing from ground zero, building up a belief system. So we're saying, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to add a belief system to Islam, and we want everybody to believe this. This is an abstract, theoretical belief system. It is not about a rule. Like if somebody said, look, can we do wudu over nail polish? Nail varnish. I say, well, okay, let's look at, you know, in this day and age, and let's look at this. And there's this little hadith here. The hadith might be weak, but we're extracting this. Islam has come for maslaha. Now, you see, this is about the applicability, applied Islam, applied fiqh. Now, some scholars may say, no, that fatwa, that this ruling given is wrong. Others may say, no, actually, I think it holds validity, even if some of these hadith that you kind of use to extend credence to it are weak, but there's a meaning that's sure. And that is nothing like establishing ground up a belief system. So I say, look, okay, you know what? Like, let's say we set something up. We say, okay, so what we're going to believe is that on Saturn, there is a particular angel that always rests on Saturn, that sits there. And this angel's name is, let's say we come up with a particular name now. So we say this, you know, we make something up. This angel is called this. Okay, now it lives on the planet Saturn. So, well, why? And towards the end of time, this angel will fly from Saturn, or it will bring Saturn to collide with the planet Earth. And say, well, where are you getting this from? Say, well, you know, I've heard this, or I'm basing this on this kind of interpretation of this verse where the cosmic bodies will collide, and I'm basing it on this, that there will be angels, and I'm basing. It's like you're giving people a belief system not based on on very clear instruction from scripture. It's like this loose wishy-washy thing, and you're setting up a entire belief system. That is very different. So here I would say no. Like, why are you setting up a belief system? I don't care if you believe in it, but really to set it up where it isn't really in the scripture.
Yeah, like me as well. I always say to people who criticize me for it as well, I always say I don't have a problem with people saying, you know, there are weak hadith about the Mahdi or whatever. I don't have a problem if it would be just that. It would have been okay. What the problem is, if in every Muslim family, unanimously, people talk about the Mahdi as if it is the non plus ultra which will happen. And that is my problem. The importance you give it is so big, but it is not in the Quran or in these three Sahih scriptures, for example.
But are you with me in seeing the difference about
I do see the
hadith
difference, but again,
deployment?
go to my point in the beginning. So that is kind of correct if I did say that for virtues.
No, but it's not virtue. It's not virtue.
No,
You see, we're using it for we're using it.
You can use a hadith which is weak for something which has been already established.
But it hasn't been established. But it hasn't been established in those cases. You see, like,
Exactly.
let's say I use the example of
Everything else
nail
you-
polish, or I use the example of that this hasn't been established, or if I use the example of not needing an alarm clock to wake up for prayer. Now, let's say a person bases certain things on. Now, this is a ruling that they are giving, and they may be using. You see, there is a difference between Islam and Iman. Okay.
Of course there is.
Now,
Of
a
course there is.
person by Islam, when used together, you know, the ulama say, إِذَا افْتَرَقَا اجْتَمَعَا وَإِذَا اجْتَمَعَا افْتَرَقَا. You know, when used on their own, they may be synonymous, and when used together, they definitely are individual. So one is faith, and the other is a system of worship and how you interact and buy and sell and how you deal, all your kind of interactions. So in this, can we base certain rulings based on things, and can we generate rulings and can we get guidance from the spirit of something? Like, let's say we're trying to gauge the spirit of the attitude towards flexibility in something. Now, what we do is we find 5 different instances which are talking about different things, but they're showing an attitude of flexibility towards something. Now we induce that understanding that there is flexibility, although, and now we refer to, let's say, scenario 6. These were talking about 5 things, and this is now a totally different thing, but it's speaking about flexibility with that same matter. So we have induced a kind of like a qaida by which we've acted on something. Now, sure, the qaida may be what they call mundarija taht it would be mundarija taht al-usul. It would be something that comes under the usul of fiqh as it is. So, you see, this is different. This is about rules, and it's about how you kind of help people navigate through their day-to-day lives within Islam. The other one is to do with a belief system, a faith structure. It's abstract. It's not about, you don't, like, so for example, if I told you there is an angel or there are angels that do something, there's nothing to act on.
I do.
Like, you can't now say, well, okay, now that I know this, let's say I told, there's 50,000 angels which have these names. There's nothing to act on. It's just information.
No, it is a fair point. I was just like, sometimes me as well, like, the problem is, as I said, I do accept it that and I'm very lenient with it in this day and age, that if someone says it and it has a good point, like for salah or something, I'm like, okay.
Like, if it helps with something here.
It helps. But of course, sometimes you have this, I say, the hadith critical glasses on, and then of course we
sure,
you and me, we don't even leave. As I said, even Bukhari is not above critique for us. So we look at those hadith or the hadith from Ammar ibn Yasir about, which a lot of people use in Sahih Muslim, that they say, okay, Muawiyah is from the Jama'ah of Jahannam, na'udhu billah. So they use that hadith. I even look at that so critically, and I literally take it apart.
That element, that part of the hadith is not sahih categorically.
Exactly. There's some people who even say ki ek jumla bhi nahi tha.
It was not. And Hafidh Abdul Haq al-Ishbili speaks on that, and other people speak on it as well.
There wasn't even one kind of, so.
And just to be clear here, look, this Bukhari thing as well, it's not, like you said, it's not above critique. It's not, technically, it's never been above critique for anyone, starting with in Imam Bukhari's time and Imam Darqutni. Then there's been a canonicity, a kind of canonization of the Sahihain, and then it's become somewhat like beyond reproach. But let's say we have presented certain critiques, let's say, of certain ahadith, even if they are in Bukhari, it's not about this is not about a kind of rebellion without a cause. This is not like a rebel without a cause kind of thing that people are like, hey, let's go criticize Bukhari for the sake of Bukhari. The distinction is that we are showing, like you spoke about the Muwatta of Imam Malik earlier on. Imam Malik is showing in the Muwatta, and the Muwatta, arguably by many people, is above Sahih Bukhari.
People don't get it because
it is because according to Imam Bukhari, the strongest chain on earth is Imam Malik's chain, his golden chain, Silsilat al-Dhahabiyah. So by Imam Bukhari's own admission, Imam Malik's Silsilat al-Dhahabiyah, nothing on earth beats it. So Imam Malik brings several ahadith in his Muwatta and says, look, here's the hadith. It is there, the son of this sound. However, we don't believe it is the sunnah. You see, there's a distinction between hadith and sunnah. Now, Malik brings in the Muwatta several ahadith and rejects them. He says this hadith, he says, like the dog, for example, he says that although that's not in the Muwatta, that's in the Mudawwana and in other things, but in the Muwatta, he brings several ahadith and he says, look, here's the hadith, but he says, we in Medina do not accept this hadith. Like, we do not practice this hadith. We can transmit it, but it's not something that is practiced by in Islam. People get upset. They say, well, how can Imam Malik bring the hadith, narrate it, and then say, oh, inna hadha al-hadith la yu'mal bihi fi baladina. In our city of Medina, we don't accept this hadith to practice by. So, and in the dog one where that you mentioned, that he says, well, how can the dog's saliva be impure if Allah says when it goes hunting for you, its prey, he says, is halal. He says, كيف يكره لعابه ويؤكل صيده.
Yeah.
How can this happen? So he says, وقد جاء الأثر. He says, we know the hadith. ولا ندري ما حقيقته. He says, but we've got no idea what is this hadith meant to be. Like, what is it meant to be? It doesn't make any sense because it goes against the Quran. So, so this understanding of saying, well, just because a hadith, its sanad is sahih, does not automatically translate according to Imam Malik's madhab and according to the Hanafi madhab, at least Imam Abu Hanifa, if not all of his madhab later on. It does not translate to the Sunnah that there will be a hadith, they are not the Sunnah. There will be the Sunnah, which is not the hadith, like Amalu Ahlul Madina. Imam Malik's whole Amal of Ahlul Madina was the greatest argument for this hadith versus Sunnah paradigm. Because because the Amal is something which was the living tradition. He was
of course his time frame was so tight that he could argue that. He could argue. He was in the position to argue it because time was on his side, And the problem is a lot of these things. I was having an argument with a very good friend of mine. He's
a discussion, I hope. An argument.
It was a discussion. And he's very well read, mashallah, but he is right now, interestingly, he's a convert, and he's right now in this position where he's doubting Sunni Islam because of some Shia kind of revelations that came to him and stuff. And they send him this link of this message. Oh, Imam Shafi'i said about that mas'ala with the daughters and stuff. You know what I mean? So they like, look, they say this and they say that, whatever. So I spoke to him and I'm like, so what? Even if there is a ikhtilaf in the Shafi'i mazhab, so what? It's ridiculous. What are they trying to say? So what happens with this whole hadith thing is, if we take people and just like moralize them in the sense of they can't make mistakes and all these great imams and this and that, what happens is a lot of the Shia beliefs are in some Sunni books, which is not sahih as a hadith. But in Ibn Majah there was this hadith, and all these things. So they come and then they say, oh, they're your Sihah Sitta, right? Just check out this hadith in your own book.
But this term, even this term Sihah Sitta, the authoritative six, I mean, this is not this is a much later invention. If I'm correct, I think is it Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi or...
Some people don't even put the Mu'atta in the Sihah Sitta.
No, they don't. In the Sihah Sitta. Isn't the Sihah Sitta coined by, is it Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi or...
but it ends with Ibn Majah. It ends with Ibn
Majah. I mean who comes up with this classification?
I'm not sure.
I think it's Ibn Tahir al-Maqdisi, who's I mean these are much later scholars, much after all the books.
Of course, yeah.
So it's not it's really just Shafi'i scholars that kind of come up with this, and obviously they don't include Imam Malik.
What would you say to someone like him, the convert, like if he says, okay, there is this whole problem of which narrative to believe. Now, of course, we have a hadith on this side which are all from Sunni imams, but then we have a hadith on that side. Now, for someone saying, of course, Sunnis will support the Sunni doctrine, and the other side will support the other doctrine. So how can I be sure he's like in this, and everything you say, he's like a full glass of water. Everything you say to him just pours around, and it's really hard to get into a discussion where he may be fruitful.
You see, the thing is that, right, the Sunni-Shia kind of polemics are much greater than just a hadith here or there rule. It's really all centered around a historical, political issue about who should succeed
No, of
in
course, of course,
leadership
of
after the Prophet
course.
sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Should it be in a royal bloodline of,
No, of
say,
course.
or should it be in the
I
companions?
get that part.
That is really just the crux of this issue.
Of
The
course.
Sunni-Shia divide is just that matter, and then everything else is like an extrapolation and something built upon it. So I wouldn't even, these other little issues, person saying this, saying that, it's neither here, neither there. It doesn't really mean much, because if you're going to say, well, look, oh, there's a crazy fatwa in some of the Sunni schools. Sure, I mean, there's crazy fatwas everywhere. You're going to find it in the Shia
It's
school, you
more
find it in
about
the
the
Sunni school.
Sahaba, like Abu Bakr. For him, it was, I think, more about these things about Abu Bakr, Umar, and saying, oh, if Hafsa and Aisha tried to kill the Prophet, and they did kill the Prophet at the end, and then the whole thing. Then, so he's like, what if it is
You see,
true?
like, okay, so here's where I'm at. Look, with these things,
Tackle the issue.
I
That's my
feel that,
question.
look, here's how I would. This is my thing on this. Look, how I see it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these are his people. Yeah, like I don't mean the greater landscape. I
Just
mean
the inner
the like with some reasonable proximity. Okay, within the parameters of reason, proximity, like closeness. So if I was to say to you, or if I'll give my own example, forget that. Like, who do I consider my family and my friends? Like actual friends, like, let's say, people I hang out with, people I uh, eat with, people I talk to, let's say, every single week, people I chill out with, I discuss problems with, people I like. And then there will be people that I know, like, let's say you've got Facebook friends, like 5,000 friends there, like most of them, I wouldn't even know them, they're just
sure.
Facebook friends. So there are layers to this thing, but I mean, given reasonable proximity, those people who really have some meaningful interaction with your life, and they are your people, quote unquote. Yeah. And the wives of the Prophet are the Prophet's wives. Like, they're his intimate, the people that give him. They not only share that intimacy with him, they share a sense of peace and solace, and this very private moments and emotionality with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, and considering, so, right, if these people, so this is where I'm at with this and how I see it. If these people were conspiring to plot and kill the Prophet, and they were really greedy, and they were really malicious and malignant kind of souls, and they had very cancerous entities that the Prophet had surrounded himself with. Yeah.
What kind of
Then
judgment did he
I
have?
would say that you see, if I was to say that, to me, that is then a poor reflection of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wal a'yadhu billah. Because if I'm to say, well, I spent my life surrounding myself with people who were really always plotting against me, and I somehow, these are the people, not only do I surround myself, I marry them, and so I just marry people who really all are plotting against me. What kind of judgment does that show about me? Like, what, if that's to say, well, oh, well, this person didn't, is this person's judgment of people, that he surrounds himself, makes friends with people who are just toxic? And so that's how I see this. That, to me, obviously this is not how the Shia see it, but to me, if I saying something like this is akin to saying that, well, that the Prophet, then it's a reflection of his poor judgment, well, ayadu billah, God forbid. And to me, that's like, how could that be? So that's
what I came.
it's
Interestingly, that is the
blasphemous
point where we
to
came
think
at the
that.
end.
Yeah.
We came to that, and I said that exactly what
Yeah.
you said, word for word. I said, at the end of the day, if we leave everything, I trust the judgment of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Exactly. And
So
we
he
have
makes a wife. If he has a friend, if Abu Bakr is his father-in-law, his best friend, like, you can't deny their connection. Even
and
the
just
Shia don't deny it.
yeah, like, and I think it's, To me, yeah, so that's the thing. That said, look, so that's how that's exactly how I say. And people, look, friends amongst themselves, the friends amongst with the friends may have disagreements, and it's very normal. Like I could look at my life and think, well, oh yeah, this friend of mine disagrees with that friend sometimes, and he
When
disagrees with
you say,
this.
when you say the hadith, you know, to say the hadith about Umar, which is also in our books, you know, that he, you know, where he said to the Prophet on the Quran is sufficient of us, for us, you know, and when he was, you know, a few days before and he wanted to say something and, you know, write it, let it written down and stuff. So when they give that argument, I think it was Ibn Hazm who wrote, didn't he write that in that sense we'll have to say Umar was wrong? Who wrote that? I
Say,
can't, was it Ibn Hazm? I can't remember. Because that hadith is like, would you say that it is, because of course they say in the hadith it says, then it became very loud and the Prophet ﷺ said, "Okay, you know, both of now." Of course, Shia say that, you know, see Umar, they were
you
the
see,
fight
look, to me,
between.
this thing, like in all honesty, these things are, this is irrelevant. Like it's immaterial because it's not what, regardless of what people say, it's not what the argument is about. The argument is simply one thing, that does succession lie with a bloodline, or does it lie based on a meritocracy?
You mean generally? Okay.
Generally, now that is it. These things are irrelevant. Like, let's say that hadith didn't even exist. The Shia argument is still there.
Yeah.
Like, there's still, like, whether that incident exists or doesn't exist. To me, look, this is just, okay, a person could say, oh, look, oh, this supports our cause.
Yeah.
Oh, this supports our cause. Oh, this supports our cause. The point is a simple argument that, look, does Islamic leadership lie in a holy bloodline? Or does it lie on, is everybody capable,
Amru
anybody capable?
Baino.
Now
Amru.
most Muslims believe that there was no sacred bloodline. They
Yeah.
respect the bloodline of the Prophet ﷺ, but it wasn't
Say,
it wasn't sacred in the sense that leadership is contained within it, within
yeah.
Islam. That they felt that no, like people rise based on their merits, that there could be a person who's from the family of the Prophet and he could be a disbeliever. He
Of
could be a
course.
non-Muslim. Abu Lahab was related to the Prophet
Just
ﷺ,
like Prophet
right?
Sallallahu.
So it's not about being related to the Prophet. Sure, if a person is pious and virtuous and from the family of the Prophet ﷺ, that, wow, that could be like, but just being from a bloodline does not offer anybody anything special. Like saying, if a person didn't believe in Islam, didn't do anything, says, oh, I'm from the offspring of Bani Hashim. It doesn't mean anything, it doesn't give them any special value according to most Muslims. So according to the other argument, no, within the holy bloodline, this is how there must be succession. It cannot. So this is it really. It doesn't, now the
Of course.
data, some
Yeah.
people say, well, it's, to me, it's immaterial. It doesn't, because we could take a hadith and you could say, well, oh, this hadith has a point over there. It doesn't, and you could even remove it altogether and they still stand. They don't patch up. So, and then I do feel, look, I feel that when it comes to these things, Sunni Shia things, they are already set in their ways and they're established.
And it's never going to
It's
change.
never going to change. There's
Mm.
no point. I don't see a point in debating it. I don't see a point in trying to say people become this, people become that. Let people be. If people are Shia, they're Shia. If people are Sunni, they're Sunni. Sure, you might get a one-off person, he goes from Sunni to Shia. You might get a one-off person, he goes from Shia to Sunni. But for the most part, they just stay. It's like if
Because,
you're considering
yeah, because
numbers
it's
at
just the
large,
environment.
it stagnates. It doesn't really change. Tiny numbers here and there on a greater platform are insignificant. They don't make a difference. This isn't a members club. Look, everybody ultimately is trying to be true to Islam, trying to have their devotion to God. And I think we have much more we can establish as some commonality,
Of course, of
common
course, of
grounds,
course.
and move forward with a kind of, a bridge of harmony and, inshallah,
I just want
compassion and
to know
love.
your take on that. That's
Yeah,
why I
yeah,
just
no, because
asked, because he
I,
came to me and he was, and that's why I just asked you your take.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So, but yeah, wow. You know what? It has. I know we've taken up so much
so time,
of
yeah.
your time as
Also,
well.
one personal question I have, a very small
Sure,
personal
sure,
question I would have, just the last one.
sure, sure.
Um, you have a very you have a mashallah really uh, big journey and stuff, and I admire your journey as well. But one question which I have is, you have probably put up with so much, I'd say, I would say hate, or maybe comments, or maybe about your appearance, about what you say, about that you're on the wrong path. How do you how when you tackled it, did you have help from your family, or
Mm.
where? Because I connect with you in a big way.
Oh,
Because
Allah
I've
bless you.
had that. I've
Mm.
had a lot of things, because of course, because of my own sins as well. Being having, being, people expect you to be perfect. People expect you to be, if you do something, it's like, for example, if you date a girl, it's if I do that, it's much worse than someone my age would do, maybe when he was 22. If I go to into a cafe, why are you sitting there with friends who are maybe, mixed and stuff? It's much worse for me. And people are not that forgiving. Or if someone is taking a loan from someone and has not paid it back, they'll say, oh, he's problems. But if I do it, it's like, oh my god, he's using his position to maybe do that to people. So it's a lot of things in every way, which how have you dealt? How did your family support you? I would That's just a personal question.
Sure. I mean, right. It's not that my family wouldn't support me, but I don't think I necessarily leaned in on family. I
Did
think
they ever tell you to go to a different path because they were
who's
very
this? Sorry,
proud of
did they tell me to take a
your
different path?
family to
No,
say,
no. My family have really just not been. They've not been involved in my kind of religious journey that much.
oh,
Really,
okay.
they've not. I mean, when I grew up, we weren't really from a religious kind of upbringing or family. I mean, we're obviously all Muslim, but we weren't really inclined to some kind of like a fervor of practicing Islam. We're just culturally, like, people just cultural. My choice to study Islam was my own choice, and initially, it was actually frowned upon by my family because they saw it as, not that they were against Islam, but they saw it as kind of useless and redundant. To
Yeah.
Why would a person want to study Islam and spend
Mm.
years? Well, it doesn't make any sense. Because to them, Islam meant, like, if you want to pray, pray. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
But what's this about going away for years and wanting to study something? What do you need to study? Just
That's really
be
interesting.
a good human being. It's as simple as that. You don't need to. So my journey was like that. Then with time, obviously, as I kind of committed to it, and I learned and I studied and did hifz and did alim course, did mufti course, and I guess they came to recognize that, okay, he's done these things, and these things hold a certain value. Obviously, they know what the things are, but I think each person, to, like, let's say my parents and stuff, like I would just be, I suppose maybe now a bit different because I'm older now. I'm 43. But let's say when I'd finished studying, I was just 25. I guess to them, I was just a kid still. So that's pretty much stayed for most of the part. To them, I'd just be a kid. Like, they wouldn't really refer to me on anything religious. They wouldn't say, oh, we've got a religious issue, let's ask him. They wouldn't ask me ever. Like, because it would just be, it's that thing. I mean, not to
But in
kind
these
of,
hard times, what would you? That's what I think the core of my
yeah.
question. These hard times, when,
So
for
they
example,
weren't really involved. So I don't even think they were so aware of my. It was just different paths. Like, they weren't on the path to be, like, they wouldn't, like, my parents are not going to be on Facebook or not going to be on. So they don't really know. Like, let's say, oh, they'll know. Oh yeah, he teaches online, does stuff online. But what does he do? What does he say? They're not really aware. Obviously, they see me. Let's say, okay, I've got a goatee, I've got this, I've got that. They see it, but they don't really, they didn't interfere in the sense, like, say, Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They didn't really do that. And I'm grateful because it allowed me the kind of freedom to be who I wanted to be and to what I felt was right. As to dealing with criticism, I
Yeah, yeah.
think I've always, since I think since childhood, certain people, we developed just because of the kind of lifestyle we were exposed to, we developed a very like a tough resilience to a lot of things. Like, I had an incredibly tough upbringing. So I was very, very just resilient to things in the sense that when I see people, sometimes you only realize it when you see other people without it. Then you realize, okay.
Yeah.
So a person, obviously I'm much older than you as well, so we're going back, and the environment was different, people were different, the upbringing was different. It was really really difficult. So when you go through stuff like that, you kind of create your own world, and you have no choice but to kind of to get up and keep going, moving forward. You have to kind of soldier on in the face of things. You can't let things get you down. Otherwise, as a kid, would have ceased to exist. It wouldn't have. So now when you have that within you, and then I guess certain aspects of maybe like I had a personality as well that liked humor, that saw the funny side to things, and so that helps incredibly. And then I definitely have a very good network of friends that I would always kind of lean in on, and that's really important, to have your own little world of people that you entirely trust.
But
Like
that,
it's
like for example, Mufti Sab, that is one thing I literally did when I
mm,
trusted people with, when you're very close friends,
mm,
you trust people with your sins as well, right? Like you don't just tell them the sunny side of yourself. You tell them the ugly side of yourself. You tell them what you maybe did which you regret in life. And the problem is when I did that, to some extent, what I saw is a lot of people said, "Oh, that's absolutely okay because you're a human like us. Just because you're a scholar, it doesn't mean that you're perfect. You're the same age as us. We do these things, so it's okay." But when they don't like you to some extent in some part of their life, they actually use it against you to expose you, and then you're
sure, sure,
like,
sure, sure,
and
sure.
then that
I
hit
mean,
me
a
so
person,
hard
yeah,
that I'm
100%. Look, you
extremely.
need a good network of solid friends. Now, to me, look, my friends, yeah, like we have an invaluable network of friends, yeah. Now, to us, now it's not, sure, we speak about religious stuff as well a lot. We actually do speak about that stuff a lot, but out of interest, not out of so
Yeah.
it's because we legitimately have an interest in these things. But it's not about, you see, I guess if you have true, genuine friends, you don't really fear this kind of stuff. Like, obviously, people are all mature. Maybe it's an age thing as well. Like, obviously, we're a lot older, so uh, you don't have this. Like, we don't like. I wouldn't like if a person was like that. Like, let's say they were, people out that kind of hold some maliciousness against you. They would not be in my circle of friends. Full stop. Like, I think you'd have a certain amount of intuition to know, and people like that may just be friendly with, but they would not be my friend. Like, they wouldn't be within an inner circle, or even people that I would hang out with, if
Yeah.
I felt they're just people who hold some kind of
If only you
toxicity
knew
against.
before, right?
No,
If
but
only.
sometimes you can, that there is intuition. You can usually tell that such and such people, they're okay with me, but they sometimes, I get this vibe from them. So, alhamdulillah, I mean, that's so. Yes, friends are very important. Your own well-being, and I think you have to. There's a considerable portion where you have to not let people's words and opinions get to you. Look, the world would never be happy with you. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to sometimes, you have to go with what you are on your path, your journey. You have to go with what you're striving for. People will mock you. People will laugh at you.
Exactly.
And TK, it happens all the time, like when if you're going to listen to each person that's going to come about criticizing you, then, but I do think what happens is, look, we all, it's a journey. I do think that sometimes, it's growth. Like you live, you learn, you grow. What's life without growth? There's no life. It's actually a key component of life is growth. So if something isn't growing in some way, whether it's cellular, whatever it is, there's no life. It would be dead. So I do look back at my own journey, and I think, like, from this perspective where I am now, I think, look, there's been a lot of this. It's been interesting, but there's a lot of things that I think that which I could have done a lot better. And I think, well, I was also equally, I think sometimes, even with like you say, you get some of the antagonism, and I think you'll get some antagonism because you'll just get that, because some people are just bitter people. Like, you could just come out today and say something really nice, like you say, people smile, it's a great day, may Allah bless you. You may say something nice, I'm making dua for everyone here, and somebody will probably come on and say, what an idiot, what a plonker. You'll get some hateful people just because they are miserable people and they extend their misery onto other people. But some antagonism you may get as because of how you are behaving, what you are doing. Maybe some people weren't going to be antagonistic, but you antagonized them. And and that's maybe part of your development, your own journey, that you haven't reached
The problem is when you do that, like, for example, me, I do realize that I've done a lot of things wrong in my life. I've you have a personal
Yeah,
everyone.
but I'm not talking about like personal stuff in the sense of
But
holding true to the values of
no,
Islam.
but with me, for example, I regret a lot of stuff, like everyone
Sure,
probably in their life.
everybody
But
regrets
then
things.
but then what holds me back is that I think, oh my God, because I have sinned, now if I go like in public and start talking about Islam again,
See,
maybe these people who know about my sins will
yeah,
try to expose me, and that holds me back from giving
I mean,
and then I look at someone like you, and I'm like, subhanallah, he
and you
can.
think, well, he's sinned so much.
No, like, but you can take criticism, and
Mm.
it's like, for
Yeah,
example,
like, I don't like I abhor the kind of this culture that you're saying tries to shame people
they
and
say, okay,
expose them. And
because what they say is everyone
yeah,
makes mistakes, but look at you, you're a guy, you're a
yeah,
alim.
I don't, you see, to me, my world isn't like, I'm not, you see, I don't view the world with this lens of things like sins. And, like, I recognize what you're saying, obviously I understand it, but to me, that this is, I think people need to work on their relationship with God. Like, to me, my relationship with God is not through this lens of, oh, how many, it's not like a bank balance, like how many sins have I committed and how many has this, like, it's not like that. It doesn't, that's just my way, that's my way. It's
It
not that
shouldn't.
way.
Of course
So
it shouldn't.
it's a very different, like, I don't see God as like an accountant. I see Allah as the source of infinite transcendental love that he is. So it's very different. And so but I agree with you. People, sure, if people are constantly on your back and they're trying to harass you, or they're trying to
That's
let's say
ahead.
this cancel culture, like, oh,
Yeah.
if you start doing something good now and people say, oh, I know Shaykh AbdulRahman Ghauri from 5 years ago, and he used to go to a club, ha ha
Yep.
ha. And
Exactly.
so now when he does this lesson about fiqh or hadith, I'm going to, I think, look, this cancel culture thing, it's just so, so abhorrent. But
It happened to Numan Ali Khan even. It's
yeah, of
unbelievable.
course, of course, of course. I mean, Naman Ali Khan obviously was the whole thing. But the 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 point is that, look, I don't know to what extent somebody, what they have on people and what they're going to share. But I would say that, look, you just, if you can, it depends. Look, maybe some of this culture, like, you do think to yourself, even this being public and doing this stuff, sometimes you think to yourself, there is this question. You think, is this even worth it? Like, what is the point of this? Like, I think every critical person will question themselves at some point. Think that, look, okay, what am I doing? Like, why am I even doing this? And sure, like maybe you think, well, alhamdulillah, like maybe there's so many people I've helped along the way, and maybe it's part of my journey to help me and to help me to help people as well, and fine. Maybe to some people they'll think, what is the point of this headache? Like, why even go online? Why not just live your life and do your thing? But if you are committed to this cause, especially if you're a sheikh, like if you've done all these studies and you think, look, I want to teach, then why not do some khair and some goodness if you're going to spread some love and you're going to spread some
And just
teachings,
stay above the criticism.
some teachings with love? Then look, people are going to criticize you. They're going to, honestly, like, I think sometimes you just have to soldier through it. Like, Allah will shine his grace. It's not, look, if we're just going to think, well, 5 years ago, or this person was in a club, or 3 years ago, this person was on this thing doing this, and oh my God, he's teaching Hadith now, or he's teaching, and let's cancel him. And if we have to just, I think a person just gets over it. And worst case, if that is the case, a person, look, either just ignore it, or a person addresses it. And if they want to, they don't need to address it, but if they feel, look, yeah, it was what it was, and here I am, I'm trying to do something good. If you don't want to listen to it, don't listen to it. But if
It's
people want to
really
listen
hard.
to it, let them
Musa,
take.
trust me, it's that it's really hard to with these
I
thoughts.
think I think sometimes I personally think that you don't focus on the distraction. You focus on your goal. Okay, this is how I see things, and this is the way of the world. If you want to get something done in life, you don't focus on the distraction. So if people are going to distract, I personally wouldn't focus on it, but some people do. Some people, and that works for them. Some people do say, look, okay, I want to explain all of these things and I want to do all of this, and maybe it works for them. And so
only people in my life, which I have to say is my older sisters, they from abroad, from Belgium and Netherlands, they were the only ones who actually told me always, do your thing, forget the criticism. And even, yourself, they used to say, when I used to tell them that they used to say, look, Mufti Abu Layth and stuff, they used to say, look, he does it himself, so you can do it, just stay above the criticism. So I have to give them a shout out.
of course, no, may Allah bless them. Ameen, ameen. And
Ashibaji, assalamu alaikum.
right, there
So
you go.
I have to
Right,
give them
much
assalamu
respect
alaikum,
to you. Yep,
So
keep
they don't have,
supporting him.
you
All,
know,
all of you, keep supporting him. Yeah, and so and look, this, just look, if you can do some goodness, and if you feel, what, look, if you feel this is your calling,
yeah,
then this, that verse that Allah says that, look, adhim finnas, yeah, to Ibrahim alayhi salam, that, but he's saying, but I can't see anyone. Adhim finnas, yeah, talk, look, you build it, they shall come. They will come. Like, you can't see it.
आप emotional कर दोगे.
No, but it's true though. It's, you do it, and something, I tell you, there is something to be grateful about, not having the greater responsibility of being so, stay humble. Like, I was speaking to someone a month ago, and they said, look, they were telling me, oh, if only I'm trying to work to get you in this other platform, and may Allah bless him, he's really, such a kind heart and so sincere heart. And I said, look, I said that, where I am today, I said, honestly, I'm saying this with from my heart. Yeah, maybe, people, I don't know, if let's say 2 years ago, if you're to say this, where I am today, I said, I feel that, what, just let me be, you say, like, let's say I have a few people that listen to me. I'm happy with that. I don't want, like, I fear the fact that when a person has so much attention, that it enslaves them.
Allahu
Like, I
Akbar.
feel that like, will I just become a slave to the views, to the, oh my God, I have to do this, and it's not that people are weak. It's that this thing of the view of the glance is so powerful
It
that
is.
even the strongest will crumble,
Yeah, it's
succumb to its
like, yeah,
pressure.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
in a way, it's such a blessing that I feel, we were saying earlier on, like you mentioned, Sheikh Yasir Qadi, you mentioned these people that have changed. This is the reason why it's so tough for them, because they have, millions of people. Now, when you have that, it's so tough.
Of
And you
course.
think to yourself that, look, there's that, um, what is it? He says, किसी सर नगूं सी टहनी पे रख देंगे चार तिनके ना बुलंद शाख होगी ना गिरेगा आशियाना. That,
Subhanallah.
this is that we'll just set up our little nest on some low hanging twigs. It's okay that our nest won't be so high, but neither will it fall. It's okay. Chalta hai yaar. We're on this world. We'll say our things. We'll smile. Maybe we'll kind of kindle a few hearts with the passion, and we'll kind of move on. And it's enough, yaar. I think honestly, this is something that I'm just starting to appreciate more and feel. So that's my nasiha. That said, I am telling all the viewers that watch this that whatever your pages or your channel do, I'll put it up, send it to me, and I'll put it up in the description. And guys, if you do follow it and do support,
Great motivation,
share.
Mufti, to all of the people who are watching, and will watch this in the future. Maybe I'll have to say you are a big, there are not a lot of people, like, I know what I'm talking about. This guy is one of a kind. I have to say that. He is one of a kind with his humor, of course, as well. Sacred humor, but with his, alhamdulillah, with his views and the way he approaches things and the way he's open to criticism and to new theories and stuff. This is one of a kind, and you should, inshallah, in the near future, it will grow and grow and grow. But it is really, you guys are lucky to have this man teaching you about religion. 100%.
Allah bless you, man. Allah bless you.
You motivated me a lot, because when I saw you, I was like, there is a guy in like me out there who has these similar views. And of course Ramdi Saab was there, but I resonate more with you because of your humor, because of the way you are, because of the way people criticize you. So alhamdulillah, keep up the good work. That's
Allah bless you, Sheikh. Allah bless you. You know what? Keep you smiling for that. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your words. We'll wrap up. We went on. I think we spoke about so many things, from the journey of Madrasa to the critique of and the study of Hadith books to what is the definition of shirk, and to how people psychologize, and coming right to concepts like Mahdi and then Hadithi discussions, and now this. And I think so, how to face quite a lot, so much that
let's see what the viewers say,
so
if they like it
shukran.
or not.
People do leave a comment when you do watch this, and we'll wrap this up. So shukran for you guys really, being patient and really just joining in this journey with us. Much love to you. May Allah always keep you guys blessed. Do spread your love, show your love. If you I will get a link as well in the description for Shaykh AbdulRahman Ghauri's pages or his sites or channels, if if they're available. And do like, follow, and express that support. If you do want to reach out, if they want to reach out to you, where should they reach out, Shaykh?
I honestly, like, I'm completely off Instagram pages and stuff, but I might just do
Okay,
one.
so okay.
Inshallah.
So if you want to reach out to Sheikh, for now you can just send a pigeon. Just let it go. Tawakkulan ala Allah. Wherever it goes, the message will get there, inshallah.
I'll set up,
because
what I'll
the
do,
hearts are connected.
You know what I'll do? What I'll do on a serious note, because you said it, I will set up Instagram account, and you can just link it for any questions, especially for people in Germany, if they have any questions related in German, or maybe
Absolutely.
for English. Of course, he's available. There is.
Right. So people.
अगर पानी है तो तयम्मुम के पास क्यों आएंगे आप? If you have
Yeah,
water, why would you do tayammum?
tayammum, but think about it. Tayammum is more, in some ways, it's more powerful. That look how the water varies, whether it's wudu or ghusl or what. Tayammum remains how it is.
That's why I said it.
Encompasses everything.
That's why I said it.
Acha, acha, acha. So, people, there you are. I will do that. I will share it. And if you want to reach out to me, you're more than welcome to drop me a message on Instagram. You're more than welcome to actually, for more in-depth interactions and one-to-one discussions, reach out to me on Patreon, on just patreon.com/MALM, and you can subscribe and you can get one-to-one sessions. You can join a Discord server. You have different options. Do you have Patreon, Sheikh?
No, I don't.
Okay, sure. So that may be something in the future. But right, guys, much love. Take care of yourselves. So, Sheikh, you as well, first and foremost. We've really taken so much of your time. People, salamullahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.